Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei and Riaz Died Fighting Trihexa and Went Back in Time Part 12. Before we start, please go support Nico FS 2000 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. S3 Chapter 7. Round 2 Final Part. Drake vs Albion. But Issei and Vali were looking at each other analytically to see what their next move was going to be. However, in a moment both celestial dragons smiled behind their helmets. Drake Albion don't want to stretch their legs a little? Issei and Vali ask in unison, smiling like crazy people with emotion. Ahahaha, I thought they would never say it. Both dragons responded with emotion. Okay, Drake, let's fight, Issei said when a crimson light began to appear in his gauntlet. Vanishing dragon that lives within me, resurrect, Vali sang when a silvery white light began to emanate from his wings. The crimson and white lights began to expand until they showed each dragon next to its bearer. Roar! Drake and Albion roared as they were freed from the sacred gear, being ready for battle, and so the four dragons launched the attack. Issei sent a blow to Vali, who dodged and sent one of his own. However, Issei blocked it, while both Drake and Albion collided their heads forcefully, generating a blizzard. The red dragon wanted to bite the white one's shoulder with its snout, however it dodged by flapping its wings and rising into the air, and then trying to sink its claws into its rival's body. But Drake, coming this moves a little away from Albion, staring at him. Albion tried to send a tail blow to the red dragon, however it reacted and grabbed a tail with its claws, and turning it several times, sent the white dragon crashing to the ground at the same time. At the same time, Issei had found an opening in Vali's defense and punched him a couple of times in the stomach, leaving him breathless and then finishing him off with a kick that sent him crashing next to Albion. What's wrong, Albion? Are they beating you up? Vali asked amusedly as he stood up. Ahaha, I'm asking you the same thing, you seem defenseless, said the white dragon responding to its bearer. Ah, I wish, Vali spoke, smiling with confidence. Let's beat them up, said Albion before spreading his wings and taking flight towards Drake, who was waiting for him in the air. The albino just smiled and looked at Issei before going to the attack. The Lucifer disappeared at a divine speed and appeared in front of him, brown, giving him an upward punch in the direction of the jaw. However, Issei dodged it by stumbling backwards. Even so, Vali was determined to return the blows he suffered previously, so he began to pressure Issei by giving him blows and kicks, trying to break Issei's defense. As for the brunette, he was defending himself from the attack of his rival, who was making him retreat insistently, and whoever insists succeeds. Vali was able to open an opening in Issei's defense by hitting him in the chest, making the brunette gasp. Not being satisfied, he punched him with immense force in the jaw, lifting Issei into the air and then giving him a kick that sent him flying. Quickly following him, the albino appeared behind Issei, ready to finish him off. With another kick, however, reacting and showing an agility that surprised even Issei himself, he turned in the air and gave Vali a kick in the back of the head that stunned him and sent him face first to the ground and then moved away from him. And wait for him, a few meters away, Vali was lying on the ground, surprised and stunned by the sudden blow he received. He began to get up, moving his neck a little to relax it. He looked at Issei with a smile behind his helmet and then attacked again, and thus both began a fight. New exchange of blows as their fight developed. While both Drake and Albion clashed strongly, fighting for domination and supremacy, neither gave in. The white and red dragon clashed heads, attacked with their claws, hurting each other. At the other without even defending itself, attacking savagely. After a few moments, both dragons separated and stared at each other. Ahahaha, it's been a while since we fought like this, Albion Drake said with joy at being fighting with his rival again. I agree, I had already forgotten how fun it is, Albion responded in the same way. However, it's time to get a little serious, said the Welsh dragon, smiling. Boost 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 boost. The Sekiryuite increased his power and opened his mouth, from which came an attack of red dragon aura with the power to destroy mountains. Ahaha, it's one of the few times we agree, Albion laughed, making a sharp face. Divide 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 divide. The Hakuryuiku began to divide the attack that was approaching him to the point that the attacks faded, and then the white dragon opened its mouth and the same aura attacks that its rivals sent at them, they came out of Albion's mouth with the difference that these were white. Upon seeing this, Drake rose into the air, dodging the attack. Welsh dragon Flare Drake was heard saying when a flame of fire capable of completely covering his rival came out of his mouth, being directed towards the white dragon, who watched the attack approach with attention. Reflect was heard from the Hakuryuiku when the attack was reflected, generating a large explosion in the place. After a few minutes, the cloud of smoke cleared and Drake could be seen covering himself with his wings, which were somewhat singed. Unfolding on his wings, the red dragon saw his rival, who did not give him any respite and took flight, attacking him with his claws, trying to damage him, but Drake reacted in time and defended himself from the white man's attack. Thus both dragons began another fight in the air. Divide 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 was heard from the hacker Yuku when Drake's power was divided. Albion took advantage of the opportunity and hit Drake's head with his claws to give him another with his tail, making him growl, after which Albion he sent an aura attack that the red dragon intercepted with an attack of its own, generating an explosion that drove the two dragons away. Boost 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 was heard from the Welsh dragon as he doubled his power and transferred it to his snout. Breath of the dragon, said Drake, sending his breath of fire towards Albion, who saw the attack with indifference. The attack hit Albion. However, Drake saw seriously how the white dragon emerged from the fire and attacked him. The white dragon sent a slash with his claws that Drake intercepted by curling his tail around the arm that was attacking him and then sending a few claws full of aura at point-blank range, drawing blood in the white dragon, making it roar in pain and anger. Albion surrounded himself with aura, causing Drake to release him and then attack it with a monstrous force that made the Welsh dragon descend towards the ground at full speed, crashing into it and generating a trail of dust. The Welsh dragon emerged from the dust and stood in front of its rival. What do you think if we finish it in one last attack? Drake asked, looking at the white dragon in front of him. We have to use our best techniques, the vanishing dragon responded. Both dragons felt this and prepared their techniques. Burning hell of embracing flames, the dragon roared when the most powerful flames came out of his mouth and were directed towards Albion. Reduce, Albion was heard saying when a trail of green smoke came out of his mouth in the direction of Drake's attack, this being his concentrated poison. Of course, both attacks collided with each other, seeking to dominate the other. Boost 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 boost. The Sekiryuute doubled his power and transferred it to his attack to make him more powerful. Divide 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 divide. Meanwhile, the Hakuryaku divided Drake's attack and absorbed it, making his own stronger. They lasted in a fight for dominance and supremacy for a few moments until an explosion was generated that shook all the artificial Kuo. By the time it was all over, you could see the two celestial dragons in the air staring at each other and a trail of poisonous smoke that was the residue of their previous attacks. "You're still as strong as ever, Red," said Albion, smiling. "I say the same," White Drake responded in the same way. "What do you think if we leave it as a tie?" Drake said, looking at his rival, who only nodded. "This is satisfied," Albion responded before seeing himself enveloped in a white light and returning to the divine dividing. Soon Drake followed in his footsteps and surrounded himself with a red aura, returning to the boosted gear. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Issei and Volley continued fighting relentlessly when suddenly they felt their companions return to their sacred gears. "You had fun?" Issei asked, smiling at his partner. "I did it. It's been a while since I fought Albion like this," Drake responded with satisfaction, to which Issei nodded. "How was Albion?" Volley asked his tenant. "It was great. It's been a while since I felt like this," answered the white dragon to his carrier. After the talks, Issei and Volley continued fighting for a while longer. But the spectators, everyone was watching the recent events attentively. Meanwhile, Volley's team was dumbfounded and shocked. "That's it," Biku stammered with his eyes wide open. The air dragon Scathach finished for the Yaokai in the same way as him, while Albedo was pale, looking at the two beings that suddenly appeared. "Oh, that's what Drake and Albion look like," Lavinia said with interest, looking at the two dragons. "What do you mean?" Arthur asked nervously, but maintaining his composure better than the rest of his team. "Those are the two celestial dragons sealed in the sacred gears of Issei and Volley," said Tiamat, answering the question of the Pendragon heir. "How is that possible?" Albedo asked, taking all of his willpower to make the words come out. She was still pale from shock. "Issei and Volley can manifest their dragons out of the sacred gear, thanks to Office's power of infinity," Rhea said calmly, so everyone saw Office and Lilith, who gave her the peace sign in a carefree way, taking a drop from her face. "I never thought I would see them fight again," Penemu said, looking at the two dragons battling. "I say the same. Is it sure that the barrier will support?" Gabriel asked with concern. "Don't worry, I don't think they'll fight with everything, they'll just want to have a little fun," Seraphol said calmly, to which the majority nodded. Ara, I never thought I would see a fight like this," Akeno said, attentive to what was happening. "So that's what dragons look like," Murayama said cautiously and impressed. "Terrifying," Kata said with a shudder. "We are also dragons," said Office, pointing at herself and then doing so with Lilith and Tiamat. "Office Naya, I think you have misunderstood her," Naya said Kuroka, looking at the Dragon of Infinity. "I think what Murayama-san wants to say is that it is the first time that she sees a dragon in the dragon form of her." Office Amafe said to the Dragon of Infinity. "I understand," answered the Dragon Goddess. "You're clueless," Lilith said monotonously. "Don't say it, you were also as confused as I was," Office responded in the same way, to which Lilith only decided to remain silent. "You haven't noticed," Ravel said thoughtfully, capturing everyone's attention. "What are you talking about, Ravel?" Raynor asked the Phoenix. "Issei-sama has not used the power of destruction that she has by absorbing the evil pieces so far in the battle," the blonde responded, surprising Volley's team, making them think that Issei was holding back. "That's true, she's not using Ascalon either," Irina said thoughtfully. "And what about Aperos?" Zenobia asked. There must be a reason why Isan hasn't even used it, girl, said Asia. That is because they both want to fight with their dragon power and their sacred gears, as they are the two celestial dragons. If you notice, Vali is not using his demonic power either, although well in the dragon Diabolos technically he is doing it, but that is a power obtained by through divine dividing, just like Issei. He is using only the power of the boosted gear and no external power, Riaz explained, making the majority open their eyes. Since it was true, let's just continue watching the fight, the Redeed said again, to which everyone agreed. S3 Chapter 8. New Longinus. Before starting the chapter 1, want to tell you that the survey about the new fic has been decided, and at the end of the chapter, there will be all the information related to it, so read it if possible. Without further ado, enjoy the chapter. But Issei and Vali, both opponents, were staring at each other, but neither had the intention of attacking. Do you think we leave it here? Issei asked, to which the albino nodded. It seems fine to me, I'm satisfied, Vali responded with a sigh, so both of them deactivated their armor. It seems that last attack by Dragon Albion had its consequences. The air is full of their residual poison, Issei said, frowning as he sniffed the air. So it seems, said Vali, doing the same as his rival. However, both dragons decided to stay silent and not say a word. Riaz, you can return this place to normal, however, try to purify the area before releasing the barrier. There is a button for that in the dimension and space controller, said Issei through his connection with the Redeed. Okay, Issei, I'll do it right away, Riaz responded, doing what Issei wanted. A few moments later, the Kuo replica returned to being the training room, and the protective barrier fell silent, so both celestial dragons approached their acquaintances and family. Everyone saw both boys with admiration and respect and made room for him, where they returned to the armchair area to relax a little. Asia, please heal them, Riaz said, to which the former nun nodded and began to heal the two boys. That sacred gear is very useful, said Scathach, being the first to break the silence after the great battle. Thank you, this is Twilight Healing. It allows me to heal any supernatural being, she responded, a little embarrassed. That's impressive, Asia-san, said Arthur. After both celestial dragons were healed, they both sat down with their respective groups. I must admit that you two are monstrous beings, Naya Kuroka said playfully, to which the majority nodded in agreement. It's true, I never thought they were so strong, Albedo spoke, drawing everyone's attention. When Vali-sama told me about Issei-sama and his power, I became a little skeptical. But now that I see it firsthand, I am surprised. I apologize for doubting from you, Issei-sama, and I hope you take care of me from now on, said Albedo, blushing at the last mentioned. No problem, I would have acted in the same way, Issei responded, downplaying it. If Yufu, and who do you think you are to come here and demand that Issei be strong enough to be with him? I think you do it because you are a weakling who can't defend herself, said Lavinia, smiling mockingly at the succubus demon. You, how dare you belittle me, insignificant human, Albedo growled with anger. I'm just saying what I think, so you two will have to prove that you're strong enough to be with Icon, Lavinia responded with a confident smile. I'll fight you whenever you want, oxygenated blonde, Albedo said to the magician, who had a twitch in her eye and saw the demon with a forced smile. Yes, catfight, Biku said laughing, receiving the piercing gaze of the two women. Don't you dare call my wife a cat, you disgusting monkey, Issei growled, increasing his aura and murderous instinct towards Biku, who tensed visibly, while Lavinia gave the brunette a loving smile for defending himself, and Albedo felt excited by the demonstration of power. A few seconds passed, and the atmosphere calmed down, but nevertheless Issei saw Vali with a serious look. Vali, Issei called his rival, catching his attention. I don't know if Azazel mentioned you, but before we went out to battle with the Trahixa he was trying to locate certain people, Issei said with a serious tone, so the albino put on the same expression. Upon hearing what he said, everyone was surprised to see that the atmosphere suddenly became very serious, surprising them since they did not know what Issei was talking about. If he told me, tell me, do you want me to try to find them so they can help us in the future? The albino asked with the same seriousness as Issei. It would be the most optimal, the truth is, they would benefit us a lot, Issei responded to Vali's question, to which he nodded. They are talking about the new carriers, right? Riaz asked in a serious tone, to which both celestials nodded. New carriers? Ravel asked herself without understanding. I mean that there are or will be 5 new Longinus. Well, that was before traveling in time. I estimate that with the inclusion of Domain Moon, there will be 6, Issei said in a serious tone, surprising everyone present. A was the only thing that could come out of everyone's mouths in a big shout. New Longinus, this is serious, Ice-chan said Seraphol, putting him into the conversation, to which the aforementioned only nodded. I didn't think that so many sacred gear could evolve at the same time, Gabriel said thoughtfully. We will have to report this, Ice-kun, said Pinemu, to which Issei and Vali only nodded. Yes, the sooner we find them and keep an eye on them, the better, answered Vali seriously. And what are these new Longinus? Lavinia asked, making everyone curious. Upon hearing the magician's question, Issei and Vali looked at each other for a moment. Well, listen carefully, Issei said with a sigh, making everyone look at him. The sacred gear that evolved or will evolve are 5, in this case, 6 if Murayama trains enough. The chestnut began to say 14th Longinus is called Nerid Kiri, or also known as the poem of the completion of the Emerald Sea. This sacred gear is essential, so we must find its wearer in the shortest possible time. It would be life or death, I would say, said Issei in a deadly serious tone, which surprised everyone. Why such a rush for that sacred gear? Akeno asked confused. Because that is the only one that did not evolve, but was a high-level Longinus from the beginning, only since no carrier has been known, nothing was known about it, Issei responded to Akeno's question. The sacred gear of which no wearer was known is hard to believe, Arthur said a little incredulously. That sacred gear has the ability to control dragons and the seas. If its user becomes our enemy, you would be in serious trouble, Issei explained with a serious tone. Upon hearing the abilities of the Longinus, most people shivered. Imagine what would happen if we faced that Longinus and its bearer turned Issei or Vali against us. It would be the end, said Rias. It would be at that assumption that everyone trembled, they didn't even want to imagine it. Well, the 15th Longinus is the Starbuster Star Blaster, also known as the sword that crushes the stars and the gun that chases the stars. It is or will be a high-level Longinus, and you could say that it is a double sacred gear, said Issei, explaining the following Longinus. That's so unfair, Kata said in disbelief. Nothing is fair in this life, Albedo said in a monotone tone. Well, to the 16th Longinus is Eon Baylor, also known as the King of Evil Eyes, who dominates space and time. As his name says, he is capable of dominating time and bending it to his will. Currently he is known as Forbidden Baylor View, and it is covered by Gaspar Vladi, said Issei looking at Gaspar, who was surprised by what was said, like most. Do me? Gaspar said nervously. He didn't like receiving so much attention. Issei just nodded. That's why, you have to behave like a man and train to awaken your balance breaker, so you can protect the girls with me and Kiba, Issei said smiling. That's true, Gaspar. With the number of women that Issei brings, it is increasingly difficult to protect them between the two of us. We need your help, Kiba said, doing his part to motivate the half-vampire. Yes, I promise that I will become very powerful, and I will help you, Gaspar responded with tears in his eyes. Everyone smiled softly at that. Daisu Crybaby, Kaneko said with a soft smile. Don't call me that, Kaneko-chan, Gaspar said embarrassed. Everyone laughed at that. Well, Issei said, returning to the atmosphere, it would be before the 17th Longinus is Alpheka Tyrant, also known as the Crown of the Absolute Abyss. It is a Longinus that has the ability to shoot nails of sacred energy. It is considered the 4th holy relic now. But those nails are with which Christ was crucified. So far that is the only thing that is known about her, Issei said in a serious tone, surprising those present. Another holy relic? Irina asked, surprised, to which Issei nodded. I think I've heard about that sacred gear, but I don't know much about it, said Gabriel thoughtfully. Any information you can find in heaven can help, Vali said to the seraph, who nodded. Well, the 18th Longinus is Unknown Dictator, also known as the Imperial Child of the World of Machines. He has the ability to manipulate iron and electronic devices. He can also create mechanical equipment, Issei explained, to which everyone was processing the information. It is important that let's look for the bearers of those 4 sacred gears to become our allies, or at least keep an eye on them and act when the situation warrants it, Issei said seriously. I will try to locate them while I continue moving around the Chaos Brigade, said Vali, to which Issei nodded. We will inform the other leaders, Serafal said, being followed by a nod from Gabriel and Penemu. Issei only nodded. After a few minutes, the brunette decided to speak again. And then what do you plan to do with your Vali team? Issei asked, capturing the attention of the aforementioned and his companions. I have to wait for Loki to attack the meeting with the Nordic faction that will take place in a while, so I can put Fenrir under my control with the help of Ruler, and look for Gogmagog, I guess, validly responded to Issei's question. Do you plan to control that monster, Vali said Biku. Of course, Fenrir and Gogmagog were part of my original team, Vali responded indifferently, surprising his teammates. And you won't recruit anyone else? Issei asked, smiling with excitement, knowing the answer. I will find Crom Cruich, as they suggested, laughing like crazy, just like Issei, making Ria sigh. You just want to fight him, Ria said tiredly. Of course we do, the two responded in unison, taking a drop out of most of them. So you also want to recruit an evil dragon? Arthur asked, to which Vali nodded. How are you so sure that he will accept? Scathach asked curiously. For the same reason that Issei and I want to find him, so we can fight each other, the albino responded. Oh, and he likes bananas, he said as an afterthought, taking a drop from his companions and some of the members of the team. Gremory, we are talking about the strongest evil dragon, right? Some incredulous people asked themselves. By the way, Albedo, there's something I've been wondering about, Raynor said, capturing the attention of the black-haired woman who looked at her. Tell me, said Albedo, looking at the foal carefully. If you are a demon, why do you have those wings? Raynor asked, seeing the wings that she thought were fallen coming out of the girl. This introduced everyone, so they paid attention. That's because she is a succubus, Rainer-chan answered Seraphol before Albedo did. What does Seraphol-sama mean? Kiara asked. Although the succubi, like the rest of the demons, are children of Lilith, unlike the common demons that are differentiated by families, the succubi are a type of demons different from the normal ones, or in this case, because there are no longer any the current demons, since they were divided by races. When the succubi were still alive, there was a race that had the name of Kakyoku, and as their name says, they were distinguished by their black wings, Seraphol explained seriously. Yufufu is distinguished by breed like a dog, said Lavinia, laughing mockingly, making a vein stand out in Albedo. You already have enough of me, human, I just want to silence that mouth of yours with blows, Albedo roared furiously. So you want to fight? What do you think if we take advantage and do your skill test? I will give you the pleasure of being your examiner, Lavinia said with confidence brimming in her voice. Of course I will, I just want to hit you until you can't get up, damn human, Albedo responded, letting herself be carried away by anger. You enjoy bothering people, huh, Lavinia, Issei said with a sigh. Yufufu, what can I say? I can't help it if I have a prey so easy to manipulate, she said, laughing amusedly. Albedo, you let yourself be carried away by provocations, that can cost you dearly, you know, Vali said with a disappointed tone. This embarrassed the black-winged demon, but her fury and pride got the better of her, so she decided to ignore Vali. Well, where do you want to fight? Asked Riaz, who was going to modify the training area. The forest is fine, Lavinia replied, smiling. Any place is fine, Albedo said, laughing. He just nodded, and soon the area changed to a forest. Wish me luck, Lavinia said, and then gave the brunette a kiss, which he reciprocated. After a few seconds, the blonde gave herself away to the honey-eyed boy and was about to go to the area where Albedo was already waiting for her. However, she was grabbed by the waist by Issei, gave her another kiss. When Lavinia noticed it, she wrapped her arms around the brunette's neck, and the kiss deepened, becoming more passionate. Issei put his tongue into the blonde's mouth, exploring it completely. Both exchanged saliva, glad of their moment, then after a few seconds they had to separate due to lack of air. Good luck, Issei said, smiling. How not to have her with such an amulet, Lavinia responded, gently attaching their lips before heading to the training area. Upon entering the wooded area, the barrier was activated instantly, while the girls were smiling nervously at the scene that the couple starred in. As for Vali, he was very uncomfortable and on the verge of fainting. Issei and Lavinia together and loving each other was something he never imagined in his darkest and most perverse dreams. Just thinking about it gave him chills. Well, I guess it's time to watch the fight, Issei said, smiling. End of chapter. As I said at the beginning of the chapter, the survey was closed and it was already decided. I must say that it was a very closed survey. The winning fic is Issei the Dragon Master. So below I will put the basic information. Servant classes. As you can see, most of the servants are determined, but there are some that I have doubts about, so it is up to you to choose. No. Miyamoto Musashi Suzuka Gozen. This class was the hardest for me to decide, but in the end I left it between these two. The truth is I'm more inclined to Suzuka, but I'm going to leave it to her decision. Lancer. Scathach. Archer. Atalanta Artemis. I put Atalanta because it was the one you voted for the most, but the truth is, Artemis, I think she will be chosen. I like her design a lot, however I am conflicted because no matter what I put, I will have a conflict with Greek mythology. I don't know what you think. Berserker. Raikou Nightingale. She is the one I have the most doubts about. She is Inu. Avenger. Nobunaga. Rider. Ushiwakameru. Pastor. Merlin. Ruler. Jeanne d'Arc. Assassin. Semiramis. Now let's go with the harem. I know I said that the story will start a year before the canon, but in reality it will start at the same time, and there will be a flashback, so the girls who will be from the beginning will be Initial Harem, Lavinia Rinai girlfriend main. They meet during the flashback because of an extermination mission that Azazel gave her. Beat Astaroth. They meet by accident once she went to Kuo to visit her friends Riaz and Sona. Roigun Belphegor. She is a very intelligent girl, and they usually get information of all kinds through her informants. Finding out about Issei one day out of the blue, she visits him at her house. Susaku Himejima, your choice. They would meet through Lavinia. Scathach. Issei's first servant, his teacher in hand-to-hand combat and weapons. Marline. His second servant is his magic teacher. They want someone else in the initial harem. I read them in the comments. Extra starting harem. Okay, now let's move on to a question I have. I know I said that in this fic I don't want the harem to focus on either the Gremory group or the Citri, but my problem is Akeno. She is very dependent on Issei. That's why I have a doubt. That's why the question is, do they want me to add Akeno to the harem? If so, she will be the only one of the two groups to add. Then it is the name of Issei's faction. Remember that not only the heroic servant spirits will be part of it, but also his other partners who will be of different races. I was thinking about giving it the same name as his Azazel Cup team, but I am in doubt, but that decision is up to you. Faction name. Finally, I have in mind that Issei participates in the demonic winds rating, which is why I ask, do you want me to give him evil pieces or do it as is currently being done in the Azazel Cup, since it is a special case? If you want with evil pieces, I was thinking about giving it 2 games, this is mostly for the servants, and because I want to add the canon members who join Issei's entourage in the future, although in this story it would only be Roswus, Ravel and Ingvald for now. Evil pieces yes or no? King. Issei, queen, tower, tower, gentleman, gentleman, bishop, bishop, pawn, 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 pawn. Remember that the servants would be part of it, and now the initial harem is done, but this time it's time for the harem in general. Those who want to be in it tell me in the comments. Issei's harem. Without further ado, that's all for today. I hope you like the chapter and please vote, give your opinion and say what you want in this new story. The X3. Issei and Lavinia's training begins. Life v. Ice Princess training. A few days had passed since the incident that led Issei and Lavinia to cooperate and work as a team, as well as Lavinia asking Issei to train together, so currently both individuals were on the outskirts of Kuo facing each other. Very good Lavinia, today we will start training, Issei said looking at the blonde calmly. And what will we start with? The magician asked anxiously, she was a little excited to start training with the boy in front of her. Nothing too complicated, we will start with a warm-up, about 100 sit-ups, push-ups, squats and about 50 laps around the clearing, then we will do a small magical and sacred gear showdown, Issei responded, to which Lavinia nodded, so they both began with the warm-up, after a while they both finished it. Yufufufu, it's time to start with the fun, Lavinia said laughing with a hand on her mouth. You look excited, Issei said smiling. I am, Lavinia responded with a smile. Well, let's begin, said the brunette, to which the magician nodded, and a celestial magical circle appeared from which an icy blizzard came out in the direction of Issei, who responded by surrounding himself in fire, heating the environment around him, and that blizzard began to heat up as that was approaching Issei, without causing him any effect. Ifufu, so you'll use fire, Lavinia said, laughing, but her expression was tense. Well, generally you feel comfortable with ice, being a dragon I feel comfortable with fire, I guess our sacred gear has a lot to do with that, Issei responded to what the blonde said. I guess you're right, said Lavinia, not being able to help but agree. However, this is not all she said when another magic circle appeared from which ice spears shot out in the direction of Issei, who intensified his fire in his fists and hit the air the same number of times as spears came towards him. Torrents of fire came out of his fists that intercepted the ice spears that melted. Just as the fire weakened but still continued on its path, so Lavinia had to dodge the attack, which continued its path, burning a few trees. Yufufu, you shouldn't burn nature, you know, said Lavinia, amused seeing a few trees on fire. Issei seemed embarrassed by what the magician said, who thought it was tender and cute how he looked. However, they were still in a fight, so they both recompassed themselves to continue. Fiery flame, Issei said, waving his hands from which a flame came out in the direction of Lavinia. Seeing this, the blonde stepped on the ground forcefully and in front of her a magic circle appeared from which a large wall of ice was raised, serving as a defense of the Issei's attack, which was very hot and intense, but still the wall was able to resist and then turned into frost and disappeared. That attack was dangerous, you can hurt someone, you know, the blonde joked, making Issei laugh. That was the idea, Lavi-chan, she responded smiling maliciously. Oh, is that so? The magician asked, smiling. Could you possibly hurt a pretty girl like me, Lavinia said innocently, making a pose that made her look extremely beautiful in Issei's eyes, who blushed, which Lavinia noticed and smiled smugly. Please, that would be the vilest of sins. Hurting a woman with beauty that rivals that of a goddess is not among the things I want to do, Issei responded, recovering from his shock. Now it was Lavinia's turn to blush. For what the chestnut said. Ifufu, you are so flattering, Icon, you flatter me, Lavinia said, putting her hands on her cheeks, taking on a shy expression, making Issei lose his composure and causing him to almost faint, but I can contain it, however I think it's time to get serious, Lavinia said again, taking a serious expression, while her eyes shone in a dim and icy blue, so Issei took on a similar expression. I think so, Lavi-chan, Issei responded to the woman in front of him. Absolute demise, said the blonde, activating her sacred gear when an ice doll of about 2 meters formed next to her, ready to follow the will of its wearer, while Lavinia's clothing changed to a long ice blue dress that it made her look much more beautiful in Issei's eyes. I shouldn't underestimate her, right? Issei asked, looking at the ice doll next to the magician. I wouldn't recommend it, maybe you want to get a little damage, the blonde responded, smiling at the brunette. I see, Issei said with a sigh. Balance breaker, Issei said, equipping his scale mail to continue his fight. Lavinia smiled when she saw the red armor and gave orders to the doll to attack Issei without further ado. The doll ran towards Issei. To attack him, with every step he took the ground where he stepped froze. Issei, upon seeing this, also attacked, propelling himself with his jets. When he arrived in front of the doll, he threw a punch that was intercepted by one of the ice girl's own. Upon contact, the Issei's arm froze. This disconcerted him a little, but he quickly dematerialized his frozen glove to replace it. However, the ice doll was not going to let him have it easy and sent another blow to which Issei could only defend himself with his arm, ending up being frozen just like the other. Upon seeing this, Issei took distance and finished replacing the frozen parts of his armor. Ifufu, you shouldn't be careless, Icon. I was someone who created several traumas for Virginia-kun and calls himself the most powerful hacker Yuuku in history, Lavinia informed amusingly. Do you know my rival? Issei asked, putting on the most surprised voice he could, being that it was something he already knew. If I do, you can say that I am something like his older sister, the magician responded. Oh really? Issei asked, looking at the blonde who only nodded at the question. Although he is a bit rough and not the affectionate type, he always ends up pushing me away, and if he finds out that I am going to be present in a place, or that I am going to appear where he is, he doesn't go or he runs away, Lavinia said solemnly. I see, Issei responded, looking at the girl. Ifufu, later I can tell you some embarrassing anecdotes about him, the blonde said again amusingly. Haha, I can't wait, Issei responded laughing, so that then the atmosphere became serious again, and the brunette looked at the ice doll. Let's continue, said the brunette, surrounding himself in fire again to protect his armor from the freezing caused by the sacred gear avatar. At Issei's words, Lavinia only nodded and sent the ice doll to attack. Issei also went on the offensive. Both collided head-on. Issei threw a punch towards his opponent, however the ice doll resisted him and threw a punch. Kick towards Issei, who also resisted it, and so both began to hit each other. Neither stopped. Blows came and went from both of them. At a certain moment, Issei took distance and fired a dragon shoot at the ice avatar, which hit him. It hit completely, generating an explosion. When the dust dissipated, you could see the ice doll, which was missing the upper part of its body but was slowly regenerating, so Issei waited a few moments until the ice doll ice was complete again. Rebuilding it costs a lot of mana, you know, Lavinia said, amused, to which Issei raised an eyebrow. Oh, what do I hear, a complaint? The chestnut asked in the same way. Not at all, the blonde responded, so that they both then laughed. The doll created ice spears in her hands and began to throw them at Issei incessantly, which made the brunette concentrate and begin to evade the attack and begin to approach at the ice girl. Yet suddenly the doll waved its hands from where it came out, shooting an icy blizzard that Issei was able to resist. However, he was dragged back a few meters, recovering the honey eye attacked again, starting another harsh exchange of blows. This had lasted a few minutes until they both separated. Suddenly Lavinia made the ice doll disappear, so Issei became alert, not knowing what the magician was up to. Balance breaker, said the blonde as a blizzard of freezing air came out of her body in all directions, freezing her entire surroundings. However, Issei managed to resist it, as only his feet were frozen and the rest of his armor turned frosty red. The cold air, the fire that surrounded him was no longer there, yet Issei quickly wrapped himself again in an even hotter fire, beginning to melt the ice on his feet. I see that you were able to resist my balance breaker, Lavinia said, smiling at the brunette. I must say that it is very powerful, however opponents powerful enough like the god class could resist it, the brunette answered, looking at Lavinia already defrosting. I guess you have a point, the blonde said thoughtfully. Tell me, Lavinia, haven't you thought about developing a balance breaker that allows you to fight more directly? Issei asked with interest. Are you talking about a subspecies? Asked the blonde, to which Issei attended. Well, sacred gear follows the will of the possessor, so it would be something interesting and useful, the brunette replied. I suppose it can be developed, said the magician thoughtfully. Would you help me do it? I asked, to which the brunette nodded happily. Of course, Issei responded. Well, said the blonde, deactivating her balance break, returning everything around her to normal, and her clothing did the same, and Issei followed her, deactivating his armor. Well, first, I guess we should start training your physical strength, said Issei, looking at the magician, who nodded. However, it's a little late. We can start with it another day, said the brunette, looking at the sky, noticing that it was already night. Tell me, beautiful lady, would you give me the honor of going to dinner with me? The brunette asked in an elegant way, so the blonde smiled. It would be a pleasure, the blonde responded, taking Issei's arm, putting it between his breasts, beginning to walk to return to the city, and thus the first day of training between Lavinia and Issei ended. Well, before continuing with the next story, I want your opinion on Lavinia's balance breaker. How will you know your balance breaker is Assoluto Argento Mondo, also known as Eternal Snow World or Absolute Silver World? As I said in the story, I want a balance breaker that is more direct, so I thought of developing a balance breaker based on Issei's armor. Her name would be Assoluto Argento Armatura, also known as the Armor of Eternal Ice or Absolute Silver Armor. I don't know what you think. I read them in the comments. I was also thinking about developing a third balance breaker for Lavinia later to help in the fight against Klepeth. This balance breaker will allow her to freeze time for a period of time, obviously, which will distinguish between friend and foe. However, I don't have a name for it yet. So I want you to leave me one that you think is correct in the comments, and I will choose the one I like the most. By the way, the next story is a battle that occurred to me some time after that arc ended, so I decided to capture it in the short story chapters. I hope you like it. Life I. Dragon vs Phoenix. It was the rating game against Razor Phoenix. At this moment he and Issei were staring, while the Gremory entourage and Ravel were a little far away watching the imminent clash. "Damn low class, you dare challenge me to my Razor Phoenix," said the blonde Phoenix with arrogance. Yes, aha, Issei mocked, bothering Razor. "Tell me why. You better not give up, all your pieces have been defeated," Issei said, looking at Razor carefully. "Ahaha, you think you can defeat me? I can only defeat all of you," Razor replied arrogantly, making Issei sigh. "Whatever you want," Issei responded with disappointment in his voice. "Balance breaker," Issei said calmly, equipping his armor and disappearing from his place at a speed that only Rias could continue. Appearing in front of Razor, she punched him in the face, sending him flying. Crashing into the academy, a few seconds passed in which the blonde compassed himself and looked at Issei with anger. "Damn low class, how dare you hit me," said the Phoenix angrily, taking out his wings of fire, going to attack Issei. However, the brunette dodged the attacks with ease, annoying Razor. While dodging, Issei surrounded one of his fingers with his hand. A thick layer of Tauki and Dragonic aura, and hit Razor on the forehead with that finger, causing the Phoenix to shoot backwards a few meters. Crawling on the ground, said attack surprised most of those who were watching. Razor stood up from the ground, furious, looking at Issei with his bloodshot eyes. "Filthy dragon, you dare to mock me," Razor roared, engulfing himself in fire, creating a sphere of his demonic power and threw it at Issei, who watched the incoming fiery attack unconcerned. The attack connected, generating an explosion and a large torrent of fire. Seeing that, Razor's eyes filled with joy and an arrogant smile appeared on his face. However, his eyes quickly went out and his smile disappeared when Issei emerged from the fire, walking calmly without any scratches. "How is it possible that you have not suffered damage?" Razor asked in disbelief. An indescribable feeling for him began to emerge in the depths of his being. However, Issei decided to remain silent and continued approaching. "I'll show you how the attacks are done," Issei said, shortening the distance, punching Razor in the stomach, making him gasp. "Feel the heat of true fire," the brunette said again when a flare of fire came out of his fist and sent Razor flying. Far away, Issei stood there calmly waiting for his opponent to recover. Some time passed, and the rubble where Razor was buried moved and revealed a singed and burned Razor beginning to regenerate. "How can you do this to me?" Razor asked, losing his calm. "I swear I will return this to you 100, not 1,000 times," said the blonde, already out of his mind, a magic circle appearing next to him from which a small firebird emerged. This made Issei curious. "Oh, the great Razor Phoenix needs the help of his familiar to defeat me," Issei mocked, achieving his goal. "Shut up, you bastard," Razor responded furiously. Then Issei saw how the small firebird began to grow to such a point that now the bird was enormous, having several meters in diameter. However, this did not disturb Issei, who saw the situation calmly. "This will be your cursed end. I will return all the humiliation you put me through," said Razor when his familiar began to fly over the. "I guess if you summoned your familiar I will have to do the same," Issei said, shrugging his shoulders when a magic circle appeared next to him from which a voluptuous and beautiful blue-haired woman emerged. "My name is Teacher," the woman said respectfully. "Yes, I did, but I already told you to tell me," Issei, the brunette replied. "As you wish," Issei, Tiamat responded, smiling at her teacher. "No matter who you summon, the result will be the same," Razor said arrogantly, so he received the look of the two dragons. "Did you say something, Razor?" Issei asked nonchalantly, causing a vein to appear on the blonde's forehead. "Why did you invoke me?" Tiamat asked, looking back at Issei. "I need you to take care of that little bird," said Issei, pointing at Razor's familiar. "That's all?" Tiamat asked without interest. "You say it as if you could defeat him," Razor said arrogantly, but was ignored again by both dragons, making him clench his fists in fury. "I could take care of it, but it gave me the opportunity to show you off, and what better way to do it than in front of the entire underworld, my beautiful dragon," Issei responded, smiling. If that's what you want, I'll act like you, little prize for the moment," said Tiamat, approaching Issei with a seductive sway of her hips. Seeing this, Issei took off his helmet and then they both gave each other a passionate kiss that they both enjoyed with pleasure. This action disconcerted Razor and made him explode. "You bastard dragons dare to ignore me," Razor roared furiously, so the couple had to separate to look at him. "Well, I guess I'll take care of your familiar," said Tiamat, seeing the bird flying over the air. "I'm ordering it to you," Issei said, so a smile appeared on Tiamat, a smile eager for a battle. Without further ado, Tiamat took out her wings and began to fly. When she was several meters from the ground, her body began to glow. When the glow ceased, he was seen in his dragon form, surprising Razor, who unconsciously took a few steps back. "The dragon," the Phoenix stammered. "I didn't tell you," said the brunette, "and used my familiar is Tiamat, Dragon Queen of Karma Chaos," the brunette said again. "Impossible," Razor said without believing it, that feeling that arose in his being intensifying. "Let's start?" Issei asked, smiling wildly. "I think it's fine," Tiamat responded from the sky with the same smile on her face. The only difference was that being in her dragon form, she looked more chilling, and without further ado Issei and Tiamat launched the attack, and thus the fight between the dragons and Phoenix began with Issei and Tiamat ferociously attacking their opponents, cornering them with every second that passed. The fight was one-sided, it was a massacre. Blows and claws were connected to the bodies of the Phoenix by the dragons, not letting them defend themselves. When both they got bored, Tiamat decided to finish off the bird with her blue flames of chaos and Issei with his dragon breath. Both attacks connected with their opponents, sending them crashing to the ground, raising a trail of dust and smoke. The pair of dragons landed on the ground, and Tiamat returned to her human form. The two looked at the smoke waiting for it to clear. When it did, Razor's familiar was no longer having disappeared in a magic circle due to the damage received, and Razor was lying on the ground. All hurt, his regeneration was almost gone. It was noticeable how slow it was. The two dragons began to approach the Phoenix, who looked at them with pure terror on his face as he approached. "Don't come close, stay away from my monsters," Razor said with terror in his voice as he crawled backwards trying to get away, while the two dragons just stood in front of him. "Please don't hurt me," Razor begged pitifully. Upon hearing and seeing it, Issei and Tiamat smiled maliciously and stretched out one of their hands towards their Phoenix. A sphere of red and blue aura respectively began to form, ready to finish off their opponent. "You give up?" Issei asked Razor, who nodded many times in fear. "I give up, but please don't hurt me," Razor exclaimed, so both dragons smiled even more, their attacks disappearing. "Razor Phoenix has surrendered, so the winner is Rias Gremory." Graphia's voice was heard throughout the artificial dimension, and then Razor was expelled in an ace of light. "It was fun," Issei said smiling. "If you foo it was," Tiamat laughed, and both looked into each other's eyes, then shortened the distance and gave each other a passionate kiss that lasted a few moments, and thus the rating game against Razor Phoenix ended, leaving Rias Gremory and her entourage as the winner. End of chapter. I hope you liked the chapter. I have some announcements to make. I would like to inform you that I already started writing Issei the Dragon Master, and at first I thought that Issei could use all the noble phantasm of his servants through the connection through cards, but I came to the conclusion that it would be very broken, so I decided to give Gate of Babylon this because it gave me an idea of how to include Valerie Teeps and Ilmenhold in the fic, although I don't know what you think. I also want to tell you that I will integrate Walburga into the story, but obviously she won't have Incinerate Anthem, so I will give her another sacred gear and give you the information below. Walburga, affiliation. Alliance of Domination Issei faction. Walburga, as you may know, is a human wizard carrying Longinus. Sacred gear. Type. Longinus. Name. Flame Sunshine, also known as the burning flames of the sun god that burn everything to ashes. Basic information. It is a sacred gear of the Longinus type that the biblical god created, taking as a reference to La, the Celtic sun god. It is known that the user is using the sacred gear as his eyes turn bright orange like sunlight, and an orange aura with enough intensity to melt everything around him covers the user. Skills. Light solar fire manipulation. The user can make light solar fire attacks by shaping it into any shape he desires. Increase in the user's magical ability. By being able to manipulate sunlight, the user becomes more powerful during the day, having more stamina, as well as his magical reserves are recharged more quickly. He clarified that he is not like Eskener, if he is not as strong at night as during the day, but he is not as strong either. Useless. Like Eon Baylor, Flame Sunshine has a part of La's consciousness and power. Balance Breaker, in his Balance Breaker form, transforms the user into a beast of sunlight and covers the area around them with light, which can turn into light monsters. I make her Longinus from the beginning because in DxD La is within the top 10, compared to Gasper's sacred gear. Since Baylor is not known if he belonged to that top, it is only said that he was defeated by La, but if you consider it doesn't have to be Longinus yet, I'll change it, you decide. This sacred gear would be Eon Baylor's counterpart. I did it this way for several reasons which I will list below. One, first of all, in the fic it is mentioned that Scathach eliminated the Celtic faction from existence, and searching the wiki to see what sacred gear to give to Walburga, I found the Celtic god section, and there were La and Baylor. As Baylor was used for Gasper's sacred gear, it occurred to me to do the same with La. Although well, there is also Angramana, but that is what it is known in Celtic mythology. DxD uses it as Angramaynu, which is Persian mythology, so I don't worry much about it plot when it appears in the story. Walburga in the canon has a fire sacred gear, so I decided to give her something similar, and thus create a rivalry with Lavinia for having an ice one, and it just so happens that La is the god of the sun. 3. I find it fun to make a sacred gear like Sword Birth Blade Blacksmith or boosted gear Divine Dividing, but with Forbidden Baylor view, and take advantage of the fact that La defeated Baylor and develop a destined rivalry between Walburga and Gasper. By the way, I would like to inform you that I already have both Issei's entourage and harem, and the members of his faction. If you want, I will upload the list in the next chapter, so you know who they are. It is up to you to do so. I decided that Issei's entourage will not include the servants, simply because it would be a bit unfair, so Issei will have the entourage with his pieces that will be used for the raiding wins and his team with his servants that will be used in the missions. However, I have a doubt with your knight. I already have one but the other is missing, and he is the last missing servant. My idea is to innovate a little, and I decided that his knight be Lilith or Varine. As you know, Lilith is the mother of demons and is currently a mass of flesh that was used by Hades to create super demons. Issei will end up running into her no matter what, whether to return her to normal or to have Varine. The truth is my idea leans more towards Lilith, the theme that she would have to be a super demon and know how to use the sword, but I want you to help me choose the sword. That sword, whichever of the two they choose, will use her. The issue of Lilith's appearance is also a problem, so I imagine her with a beauty comparable to Gabriel's, but with her differences, being that Gabriel is an angel and blonde, I imagine the black-haired Lilith being a demon, so I want her to help me in this dilemma. Who do you prefer? Lilith or Varine? Sword in your demonic preference and be innovative please. Lilith's appearance, if you choose her you can choose the appearance of an I'm girls and send me the link of the image in the comments, and in her preference that she be black-haired, otherwise there is no problem, whichever you like the most. Well, that's all. I will use this fic while I publish it to inform you of how the story is going. Know that I want everyone to participate in this new fic and we do it together, so you will have information about it quite often asking your preferences. S3 Chapter 9. Lavinia vs Albedo. With Lavinia and Albedo, the two women were in the artificial forest staring at each other. I guess I can afford not to hold back with you, Lavinia said, smiling at the demon. Or believe me, you will suffer a lot if you do, Albedo responded viciously and with a malicious smile. Oh, let's play then, Lavinia said when a wand appeared in her hand and pointed at Albedo. From said instrument, a scorching flame of fire came out that the black-haired woman dodged, so the attack continued until it collided with the trees, turning them into ashes. This was a little surprising to the demon, but she quickly compassed herself and looked at the magician in front of her. HMP, don't think too much, I can also use magic, said Albedo when a magic circle appeared in front of her from which a torrent of water came out and shot towards Lavinia, who quickly summoned her broom and climbed on it and then took flight and kept the air. So you have your own broom, said Albedo, amused, trying to make fun of the blonde who did not even give importance to the demon's words. However, I do have my own wings. If I take you off that broom you are finished, said Albedo, confidently starting to fly to attack the blonde mage. Don't trust yourself, little demon, I'm in the air for a reason, Lavinia responded, smiling smugly as she raised her wand to the sky. After a few moments, clouds began to form around her, from which lightning bolts shot towards an unsuspecting Albedo, who was surprised by the attack. However, she reacted quickly and summoned her bicorn hat and began to repel and deflect the attacks that were coming towards her. It's useless, being a magician, I'm the worst opponent you could have faced, said the black-haired woman with an air of smugness. Oh, and why is that? Lavinia asked with grace as she raised an eyebrow. My demonic power allows me to manipulate damage and nullify the powers of my opponents, Albedo replied smugly. Haha, Lavinia laughed, having fun with the situation. What is so funny? Albedo grunted the relaxed attitude. Cancel this, little demon, said Lavinia, pointing her wand at Albedo, from which a ray of light shot out. The black-haired woman prepared her bicorn hat to counteract the attack. However, the bicorn hat served as a way for the attack to connect with Albedo, who hid a cry of pain as Lavinia's attack burned his body. But what? Albedo said, bewildered. You are still a demon. It is obvious that the light is going to affect you, Lavinia said with a smile. Damn, Albedo growled angrily and then smiled maliciously and pointed her hand at Lavinia, who saw this strangely, then Albedo closed her fist tightly. Bueg, Lavinia spit out blood and grabbed her chest in pain. Yufufufu, I told you that I can manipulate damage, but not only do I do it physically, I can also do it from a distance, said Albedo, laughing madly. It's time to return the humiliation that I received when I was damaged by that insignificant attack of yours. The demon spoke again, disappearing from her place and appearing in front of Lavinia, giving her a strong punch in the stomach that knocked her off her broom and sent her flying. The black-haired woman quickly followed her and appearing above her, she kicked her that sent the magician to crash against the ground, raising a cloud of dust, her broom disappearing into its pocket dimension. Albedo, satisfied, returned to the ground to wait for her opponent to recover. However, to the surprise of the black-haired woman, when the dust dissipated, Lavinia was standing immaculately while she wiped the dust off her clothes, and a bright golden aura surrounded her. You must be careful with your attacks, you can hurt someone, Lavinia joked to Albedo's dismay. How are you without any scratches? The black-haired girl asked, coming out of shock. Oh, that, Lavinia said, smiling, it's my defensive spell, Protective Light. You can't cause me harm using it, the blonde said, shrugging her shoulders, when the bright golden aura around her faded. Then she raised her wand again in the air, and right above a gigantic spear of light began to form from it. Let's see how you resist this, said the blonde, launching her attack towards Albedo, who saw how she was approaching. Damn if that attack will cause me a lot of damage, Albedo said with annoyance. However, an excited smile appeared on her face moments later, and a magic circle wrapped around her body, so that an armor was equipped on her body, and an axe appeared on her hand. Albedo quickly swung her weapon and hit the projectile that was coming towards her full counter, Albedo said, when the attack was reflected and returned to Lavinia, who opened her eyes in surprise to see how her attack was returned. When the spear collided, a big explosion in the place, which made the black-haired girl laugh with joy. A few moments passed and she stopped laughing just as the cloud of smoke was clearing. You could see Lavinia surrounded by a force field with her hands on her hips, but if you looked closely you could notice a serious look. The force field vanished, and Lavinia looked at Albedo intently. "Hey, what did you do?" Lavinia asked with a serious voice for the first time in the entire fight. "Oh, did you like my gift?" Albedo asked amusingly. "With my axe I have the ability to reflect projectiles, returning them towards my opponent," the demon explained to the blonde. "I see," Lavinia responded, nodding her head. "I can also notice that your power increased exaggeratedly," Lavinia said calmly. "What is this ridiculous increase in power?" "He can sweep the floor with Icon and Balance Breaker, even in his current state," Lavinia thought, biting her lip. "Still, it still doesn't compare to his crimson armor." Finishing her line of thought, Lavinia smiled confidently. "That's right, now you won't have a human chance," Albedo said smugly. "Don't believe too much, you won't win by raising the difficulty level a little," Lavinia responded with confidence, greatly annoying the black-haired girl. "You will swallow your words, human," Albedo said with annoyance, going to attack the blonde, who only widened her smile. Absolute demise was what came out of the blonde's lips when the 3-meter-tall doll intercepted the demon, surprising her. "What is this?" Albedo asked, annoyed, looking at the ice doll. "Oh, that's my sacred gear, you'll have to go through it to get to me," Lavinia answered amusingly. "That will be easy," Albedo attacking the doll with his axe with the intention of cutting it. However, the ice avatar created a sword in his hand and blocked the axe, surprising Albedo, and then both began an exchange of blows. "As I assumed, that armor is something else, compared to Issei's scale mail. It doesn't freeze upon contact with it," thought the blonde, analyzing her opponent while fighting. "However, I wonder if she can resist my Assoluto Argento Mondo. Unlike Issei, she is a demon. She does not possess the resistance that he possesses in that divine body of his," thought Lavinia, when a malicious smile appeared on her face, an idea beginning to form in her head. Meanwhile, aside from the thoughts of the blonde, Albedo continued fighting against the ice doll, who separated after a clash between their attacks, and the ice avatar threw spears at her. "It's useless," said the black-haired woman, advancing towards the doll without the spears doing anything to her. She increased her speed and power in her attack and sent a cut to the doll, cutting it in half, and sent an upward cut, cutting it into 4. "It caused a smile to appear on the demon." "What I told you it would be," said the black-haired woman, smiling. "Ufufufu, you still have a lot to learn, little demon," said Lavinia, smiling when the 4 parts of the ice doll came together, and then gave a powerful punch to a surprised Albedo on the helmet of her armor, sending her dragging a few meters down the road. "Floor, what is that thing supposed to be?" Albedo asked, getting up from the sudden blow he received. "My ice doll regenerates by consuming my mana," Lavinia responded smiling. "Then I will destroy it to the point that it will no longer regenerate," Albedo said to attack the doll again, cutting it again. However, it rebuilt itself, and the cycle was repeated several more times, frustrating Albedo in the process. "Now I'm tired of this," the black-haired woman screamed, exasperated when she disappeared from her place and appeared behind the blonde, ready to cut her in half with her axe. Teleportation, Lavinia thought, a little dazed, turning her head towards where Albedo was, seeing how the axe was millimeters away from hitting her. Albedo was elated, knowing that the human, as she told her, could not dodge her attack, and the fight would end. However, to her dismay, a dark aura began to surround the blonde, and she saw how she sank into the ground, apparently in the shadows, and her attack hit the ground, creating a crater. Lavinia appeared a few meters from Albedo, looking at her with a mocking smile. "They haven't told you that you are very impatient," Lavinia said mockingly, causing Albedo to grit her teeth behind her helmet. "Damn you, why can't I hit you?" Albedo growled in frustration, much to Lavinia's amusement. "I am an expert in elemental magic, and one of the elements I can use is darkness, therefore I have the ability to manipulate shadows. It is very useful for camouflage and stealth, you know," Lavinia explained in a mocking tone, receiving a growl. "Strongest of the demon, but if you want to fight me so much directly, I will give you the pleasure," said Lavinia with a smile when the atmosphere around her began to cool down, something that Albedo noticed and made her alert. "Balance Breaker. Assoluto Argento Armatura." After shouting those words, the ice doll turned into frost that headed towards Lavinia and surrounded her and then began to solidify, covering Lavinia's body with ice armor. When she finished equipping herself with the aforementioned Lavinia, she launched herself into the attack, so Albedo with a new emotion in her being followed her. They both bumped fists, however Albedo was quickly at a disadvantage when the fist that collided with him from Lavinia froze. But what was all Albedo could say before receiving a strong punch in the stomach from the blonde that made her gasp. However, he quickly recovered and looked at Lavinia. "What did you do?" Albedo asked with annoyance. "Surprised, it's just a preventive measure that I took," the blonde responded, smiling. "What are you talking about?" the black-haired girl asked, confused. "Well, at the time of developing the armor I realized that it was too fragile, so I had to innovate in various defense methods," Lavinia began to explain. "One of them is that I combine it with my protective light defense magic, another of them it is the one you just saw, it agreed with my original balance breaker. At the moment of contact the armor generates a freezing blizzard that freezes everything, but on a much smaller scale than what my balance breaker does," or else he said when a smile appeared on her face and disappeared from her place, appearing in front of Albedo. Her fist covered with a yellow aura hit Albedo's chin, breaking her helmet, making her spit blood and lifting her into the air. Lavinia quickly jumped and surrounded her leg with the same yellow aura, giving the black-haired girl a downward kick, causing her to crash into the ground, generating a large crater. "I can cover her with Taki," said the blonde magician, already on the ground watching her opponent stand up after the two hard blows. "But the truth is I prefer to use it in combination with my other balance breaker because," he said, smiling to disappear again from Albedo's sight and give her several blows to her body. Each area of the body in which Lavinia's blow connected was frozen. After the attack Albedo returned to fall heavily to the ground and Lavinia returned to her previous place. "I can also use it offensively," Lavinia explained the capabilities of her new armor with a fierce demonstration of power and then deactivated it inside. However, when she looked ahead, she saw how Albedo began to lift with the last strength I had. "I'm not finished yet," said the black-haired woman, looking at the blonde while she began to assimilate the pieces of armor that remained on her body. This made Lavinia sigh again. "This blow will be the last," Lavinia said, her eyes shining in an icy blue. The blonde's words were Albedo's breaking point, all the frustration, helplessness and anger that she was accumulating during the battle for not being able to hurt her opponent broke out. You dare to underestimate me, to belittle me," the black-haired woman shouted in anger, beginning to surround herself with her aura. I cannot lose, I will not lose against a miserable human," she shouted furiously, swinging her axe forward from which it came out. A shock wave in the direction of Lavinia that destroyed everything in its path, an attack that the blonde dodged. Seeing this, Albedo continued attacking, driven by out-of-control anger, while she screamed again and again. Shock wave after shock wave came out. Shots from the axe destroying everything around her. However, Lavinia delicately dodged each attack as she approached her opponent. This continued until Lavinia arrived in front of Albedo in a crouching manner and placed her hands on her abdomen. "Balance breaker. Assoluto Argento Mondo." After saying those words, Albedo's body was completely frozen like the entire forest, while her axe disappeared in an ace of light, ending the fight. Lavinia stood up and looked at the frozen demon. "Albedo, being a partner of the top 4 of the supernatural world is not child's play. It is a very complicated task full of risk, however you have what it takes to do it, so I give you my approval," said Lavinia, so that her doll then appeared to her side again and carried the frozen Albedo, and thus the three headed towards where the others were. End of chapter. Well, I hope you liked the chapter, and as I said in the previous chapter, here I bring you the lists of the new fic harem list. Lavinia Rinai Main, Beat Astereth, Roygun Belphegor, Susaku Himajima, Scathach, Marline, Ingvold Leviathan, Nyx, Isaka, Gabriel, Enemu, Office, Rafia, Kiyomabe, Suzuka Gozen, Hello, Eris, Nemesis, Lilith, Barine, Tiamat, Hiroka, The Fae, Griselda, Morana, Ilmenhold Karnstein, Valerie Teeps, Volberga, Natsum, Kunu, Arena, Jean Dark, Semiramis, Ravel, Roswis, Sagebrush, Raikou, Ushiwakameru, Nobunaga, Lint Selzen, Serafol, Enelana Bale, Ubalana, Shulan, Bulent. Well, this is the harem list so far. Please don't be altered, don't worry. I know that none of the members of the Grimoire or Citri group are on the list, and the reason is because I want to see how the story develops and get to the canon to see if I include any of them or not, like this, that they do not alter. I also want to know if you want me to add any other woman to the harem, taking out the ones I said before for the reasons I told you. I don't know any woman from mythology that you want me to add, or any DXD character that is not there that you want me to add. For example, I am thinking of adding other spinster Valkyries to the harem, in this case Brynhildr. So if you want to leave a character for the harem, I read them in the comments. Well, as you will see in the harem there are Nyx, in addition to Nemesis and Eris who will be his subordinates. The truth is I like the Trinity, but I want to add a 4th goddess, some idea of a similar goddess that he profiles to be allied with the Underworld Alliance, because the truth is I can't think of any. It doesn't necessarily have to be from Greek mythology. It can be from anyone, by the way. It can't be Hela, because well she's already in the harem, and I have planned how to integrate her. Oh, and I prefer it not to be Ereshkigal either. It's not that I have anything against her, I like it more, but I don't see it in the fic. I read them in the comments. Well, now let's go with the appearance of some harem characters who will have to choose the one they like the most. First Lilith. The first chosen is Sayla. She will obviously be without the horns and tattoos. The second chosen is Astareth from Sentu and Hakenshimasu. Anyone who watches the anime or follows the novels should know her. Well, those are the options for Lilith. Which one do you prefer? We continue with Penemu. The first is Medusa, and the second is Siko. Which do you prefer? And the doubt that eats me. Which do you prefer? The one above is Tamamo no Mei from Yami to Baoshi to Han no Tabibito, by the way. Well, now I will show you the appearances of Nemesis and Eris. Nemesis appearance, Eris appearance. And now I want to tell you that I was checking the wiki out of curiosity, and I found a gem, pure gold I would say. She is Nemesis Shizuka Gremory, and she is the director of Kuo Academy. And guess what she supposedly she is Milika's granddaughter. Delighted by this, it occurred to me to put her in the harem, but that is your decision. What do you say? For the harem or not? Now we move on to Issei's nobility. Entourage, King. Haidu Issei, Queen. Lavinia Reen I Ingvild Leviathan. I have my doubts about who to make Issei's queen, because Ingvild is her queen, but in the fic Lavinia is the most important woman for Issei. That's why I'm hesitating. What do you say? Bishop. Ravel Phoenix. Bishop. Roygun Belphegor Suzaku Himejima. The truth is that here I am hesitating about who will be the best position for whom, since well Suzaku is a human, and Roygun is a supreme class demon, but you decide which position to give each one. Brook. Roswis. Brook. Shulan. Knight. Lind Selzen. Mutant Knight. Lilith. Pawn. Kiamabe. Pawn. Bulant. Pawn. Laisha Astareth. Mutant Pawn. Tiamat. Mutant Pawn. Ubalana. Mutant Pawn. Lavinia Rena Ingvild. Leviathan. Same thing I said above. Mutant Pawn. Suzaku Himejima. Roygun Belphegor as mentioned above. Mutant Pawn. Wolberga. By the way, I decided to add Roygun to the retinue because the truth is something possible. In DxD it has been seen how he can be a high-class demon, being the leader of a family, and having an entourage and everything but still belonging to another, so I decided so. By the way, don't pay attention to the ones about the mutated pieces, I made them as a guide. In the end I decided that all of Issei's pieces will be mutated. But tell me what you think of Issei's entourage. Now it will be the list of Issei's faction. Alliance of Domination faction. Leader. Issei Haidu. Members. Lavinia Renai Entourage member. Laisha Astareth Retinue member. Roygun Belphegor Retinue member. Suzaku Himejima Entourage member. Ingvild Leviathan Retinue member. Scathach Servant. Merlin Servant. Tiamabe Entourage member. Nyx infiltrated in the Underworld Alliance. Tiamat Retinue member. Jean Dark Servant. Semiramis Servant. Ravel Entourage member. Roswis Entourage member. Suzuka Gozen Servant. Artemis Servant. Raikou Servant. Ushiwakameru Servant. Nobunaga Servant. Lind Selzen Entourage member. Ella. The truth is because it seems unfair to me that we are Vali who has Loki's son on his team, and it is also to keep an eye on his father. Ubalana Entourage member. Shulan Entourage member. Bulant Entourage member. Bolberga Entourage member. Lilith Retinue member. Barine Old Mag faction spy. Office Cows Brigade leader spy Clippeth Rizavam. As you will see, all the members of Issei's faction have a marked role. In my fic in the supernatural world what Issei says will be done and the terrorist factions will be his playground. There is no fly that lives in the world that Issei does not know about it, and as you will see, all the women who are Issei's partners are women with good bodies, with the exception of Office, Merlin and Kunu. Well, with Office, I will use the adult version when she is with Issei. With Merlin he fiddled a little in the script, and with Kunu, well, she's a girl, and what you choose depends on her appearance. Without more I say goodbye. S3 Chapter 10. Verdict. With the rest, everyone who watched the fight was watching with different emotions, as Lavinia approached with a frozen albedo being carried by her sacred gear. On the side of Vali's team, they saw the blonde in surprise, and noticed how at all times she maintained control of the fight. Battle against her teammate, while their leader looked at her with a mix of emotions. On the Gremory group side, some were surprised by the display of power of both combatants, but on the part of the girls who made up Issei's harem, they saw their sister with dazzling smiles, being proud of the magician's display of power. They understood that being Issei's partner was a complicated task, so they had to be powerful, so as not to become a burden for their loved one, which is why they tried very hard, being Ria's, the one who had the biggest smile, being the most insistent on the subject, so she trained and made the others train hard, aware of the dangers that came ahead. Meanwhile, Issei watched as Lavinia approached with a loving smile, pleased of his beloved magician's progress. He knew all the work it took her to develop that balance breaker subspecies of absolute demise, and he was happy that thanks to his help, she was able to achieve it. And what did you think of the battle? Lavinia asked with a smile when she reached where everyone was. It was a big fight, Tiamat responded, smiling at the blonde with the other girls nodding in agreement with the dragon. That was great, sensei, Kata said with emotion, being followed by her best friend who was the same as her, to which the magician smiled at her student. I must say that you are very powerful, Lavinia-san. It is surprising, Arthur said while he adjusted his glasses. I swept the floor with a demon girl, Biku said mockingly. I dare you to say it when it's thawed, Naya, Kuroka answered her yakai partner amusingly, causing Biku to shudder. Such a display of power was exciting to see, said Scathach, smiling enthusiastically. You are very good at manipulating ice, maybe we can train together, Lavinia-chan said Seraphol, smiling happily at the blonde. Thank you for the compliments, she is also very powerful, Lavinia said with a smile, and in fact it is something that I would like, Seraphol said the blonde, looking at the Mayu, sharing a mutual nod, leaving it as a silent agreement to do it at some point. When did you get that balance breaker of yours? Volley asked, finally speaking after having remained silent. I did it with the training I was doing with Icon, he said that he needed a more direct form of attack, and he helped me develop that subspecies, the blonde responded to the white-haired boy who nodded. And I feel so proud of you for that, Issei said, smiling at the magician, who looked at him with a loving look and began to approach him. I know, honey, I am too, said Lavinia when she finally arrived in front of Issei, sitting on his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck, and then giving him a loving kiss that the brunette gladly reciprocated, taking her by the waist, holding her closer to him, who without warning, he put his tongue into the blonde's mouth, exploiting it with passion, causing a muffled moan from the magician. Both were gladly exchanging saliva for a few moments under the gaze of those present, who seemed a little uncomfortable, especially Volley, who he didn't know where to go. He was still in shock regarding the situation of his rival and his older sister figure. He couldn't believe that they are in a relationship. The girls watched with smiles the small moment between their lover and his sister. Bothering them at all, after a while Issei and Lavinia separated, trying to catch their breath, but they continued to look into each other's eyes, a look that showed the affection and love they had for each other. After a few seconds the two came back to their senses. Then they paid attention to the others present in the room. The blonde settled on the brunette's lap and looked at everyone in the room, a perpetual smile on her face. If you finished with your demonstration, could you unfreeze my partner? Volley asked with an irritated tone, with Albedo being a few meters next to where he and his companions were sitting, still frozen, being where the ice doll Absolute Demise left her before disappearing. Oh, you don't have to be jealous, Virginia-kun, Lavinia replied amusingly, trying to make fun of her little brother. HMP, I don't know where you get that nonsense from, just defrost Albedo, if she said with an even more annoyed and irritated tone. Of course, Lavinia responded, shrugging her shoulders, sending a mocking smile and a wink to the albino, making him growl and then snap his fingers and defrost the demon, while her ice shattered and then became particles and then disappeared. Was the confused sound that came out of Albedo's lips, looking disoriented everywhere. What happened? The black-haired girl asked, confused without understanding, still dazed. The fight persists, I end up turning you into an ice sculpture, Lavinia responded to the question of the feathered winged demon, who looked away towards the voice that answered, seeing Lavinia sitting on Issei's lap. You damn human, Albedo said with clear anger in her voice as her eyes became bloodshot and her aura surfaced again. However, when she was ready to attack the magician again, she was stopped. Albedo, stop it, Volley said with a demanding voice, looking at his teammate. But Volley-sama, the black-haired girl, tried to reply. But nothing, the fight ended and you lost, the white-haired man said again, making Albedo sit in her place, grumbling and pouting. Kakaka, they scolded you, they challenged you. Kakaka Biku laughed at his partner. Shut up, you damn super-developed orangutan, Albedo growled, glaring. Hey, how dare you, the Yaokai monkey shouted indignantly. Do you want me to kick your ass, he said again. Try it, Albedo growled. Enough, stop both of you, Scathach intervened, his red eyes shining with power, stopping the discussion immediately, making those in question look the other way. As for Arthur, he just sighed tiredly. Nyahahaja hahaha, super developed orangutan Nyahahaja hahaha. Kuroka and Riaz couldn't stand it and started laughing uncontrollably, receiving a withering look from Biku, but both girls didn't give it any importance and continued laughing for a few more moments before calming down. You are still as temperamental as always, Albedo, Nya Kuroka said, trying to make fun of her friend. I don't know what you're talking about, Albedo responded, pretending not to understand. You were always so angry, irritable and fickle, Kuroka continued while smiling amused. Just shut up, Kuroka, Albedo shouted, embarrassed, causing some laughter among those present, making the black-haired girl shrink in her seat while pouting, which Issei thought was cute, who smiled and winked at her, making the black-haired girl blush a little. This was seen by Lavinia, who smiled. I'm impressed, it was a good battle, you are a formidable opponent, Albedo, I hope we can fight again, the blonde spoke, making all the attention focus on her. HMP, if you say it like that, I guess you're right, but next time I'll beat you to being human, Albedo responded in a flat tone, but if you looked closely, you could see the slightest hint of a smile on her face. You can call me Lavinia, you know, the blonde said, smiling amused. Whatever, the black-haired woman dismissed, but her smile widened a little. I must say that I agree with Lavinia here, Rainer said reluctantly, very reluctantly. She knew what this meant and she didn't like it, but she would complain to Issei in private so that he could shower her with affection later. You are powerful by right. The black-haired fool said again, in fact he was stronger than her, and that some of the girls are not like he would admit that out loud. He silently promised himself to increase his training regimen to get even stronger. In fact, it is the first time I have met a demon with abilities as peculiar as those of Albedo-sama, Ravel said thoughtfully with a hand on her chin. And they saw the equipment she had, it was magnificent, said Zenobia with a shine in her eyes flashing with excitement. Zenobia-san is excited, she said, happy for her friend. Even so, we must continue training girls, we will become stronger in the name of the Lord, Irina said enthusiastically, making her friends nod. It's the first time I've come across such a peculiar demon in a long time, Gabriel said analytically, looking at Albedo, making her a little nervous. In fact, I think the last time I did it was in the war. Penemu supported her sister. It is unusual to meet someone like that. I think the most similar thing I have found is Kiara-chan, Serafal said, so her two fellow leaders nodded. What do I have to see, Serafal-sama? The orange-haired girl asked, confused as to why she had been mentioned. Well, she is a descendant of a dead race of demons, so it is almost impossible to encounter beings like that, and you are the last survivor of your clan, so her situations are similar, the Mayu explained. Was the only thing that could come out of Kiara's lips, looking at Albedo a little uncomfortable. For what Albedo-sama is worth, I hope we can get along from now on, she said to him with a bright smile. Thank you, the black-haired demon responded, a little disconcerted, not knowing what to say. Just as LaFay said, Ria spoke, finally capturing everyone's attention. I think you passed the test, so you have a free way to be with Ice, the Redhead said, smiling when the brunette listened to her. The brunette only smiled at Albedo, who blushed. Yufufufu, they're welcoming you, said Scathach, amused, mocking her friend, who glared at her, although her blush didn't do much to intimidate the purple-haired girl. Yufufufu, you are also invited to join us if you want to, Keno said laughing, blushing at the red-eyed girl, who looked at the brunette, who smiled at her when he saw her smile. Scathach calmed down and her eyes shone mischievously. I guess I could try it, said the purple-haired girl, smiling, sending a kiss and a wink to the brunette, who blushed, making a Keno and Scathach laugh. Prude, Albedo said frowning. Ifufu, we'll see what you do in a while, Scathach responded, smiling, to which Albedo looked away. Ifufu, is she one of those who act shy at first? Queen Gremory asked, amused. Leave her alone, she hates being bothered, the purple-haired girl responded, smiling. Shut up now, Albedo said with irritation in her voice. Baz, said the red-eyed girl, so Albedo grumbled in her place. While that talk was happening, Lavinia was giving Issei a deep kiss, which the brunette gladly reciprocated and then separated. Yufufufu, it's been a while since I've seen you blush, you look so cute, Lavinia said amusingly, and then gave Issei another kiss that lasted a while. I guess they and I will get along well, Lavinia said after separating from the kiss, looking at each other. I look askance at Akeno and Scathach. The rival, I think it's time to go, with how long the fights lasted, it got late, Volley said, capturing everyone's attention. Well then, you know that you can come whenever you want, and if you want to use the training field, do so, said Issei, to which the albino nodded in gratitude, before standing up from the couch, being closely followed by his companions. We will see each other soon, Ani-sama, she said to him, standing up and going to hug Arthur, who received her happily. Virginia-kun, behave well, yes, said Lavinia, giving him a smile. Whatever, the albino responded, looking away, so Biku laughed. We'll be seeing each other later, Kuroka, said Albedo, saying goodbye to her friend and then looking at Issei. And Issei-sama, I hope we can get along well from now on, the black-haired girl said again, giving the brunette a beautiful smile, who returned it. It was a pleasure to meet you, Scathach said in a regal and dignified manner, looking at everyone present with her red eyes until they stopped at Issei and Ice-kun. I am at your disposal, and I hope you take good care of me, the violet-haired girl told him, sending him a flirtatious wink, causing another blush in the brunette. You are so cute and tender, Lavinia said delightedly, kissing Issei and starting to spread kisses all over his face. Yufufufu, the red-eyed girl laughed melodiously when she saw the reaction she caused in the Sekirute. Ara, I see that you have a good impression, Akeno said amusingly, looking at her newly acquired friend. What can I say, I am someone magnificent, Scathach responded, smiling proudly, making some smile. Well, we'll be seeing each other, Arthur said to take out Caliburn and open a dimensional crack for everyone to pass through, and so each of the members of the volley team passed until the last one was Pendragon himself, and then it closed. You like to bother Volley a lot, Issei said, smiling at the blonde. Yufufufu, it's so fun to do it, Lavinia responded. Besides, I didn't hear you complaining. The blonde whispered in the brunette's ear, blowing her breath into hers in a suggestive way. I don't care as long as I can have you as close to me as possible and be able to give you love, my life, Issei whispered in the same way in the blonde's ear, giving her earlobe a lick. I love him so much too, darling, Lavinia whispered, giving a sigh, and then they both strengthened her embrace even more, attaching her bodies erotically. Issei began to lick the blonde magician's neck, exploring it. Ah was the soft moan that Lavinia gave in the chestnut's ear, sounding a little lascivious according to him. Lavinia quickly did not stay behind and began to distribute kisses on Issei's neck, immersing herself in the moment. Both showed each other all their feelings. Cough, a very fake cough was heard that made them both separate and look in the direction of the cough, and they saw all the girls standing looking at them. Looking further they noticed some Kiba and Gasper a little far away, and Akadis and Murayama with a few blushes on their faces. Issei just smiled nervously, while Lavinia did it innocently. Go to a room, the hexual tension between you can be felt for miles, Rainer said, looking in a bad way, to which Lavinia settled down to look at the fall. Jealous Ray-chan? The blonde asked mockingly as she moved her hip seductively in Issei's lap, making her give a muffled moan, which Lavinia noticed, leaving her pleased, causing Rainer's eyebrow to tremble. Don't call me Ray-chan, the black-haired girl growled, causing the girls to laugh and making Riaz just sigh exasperatedly, holding her head, while Issei only attached Lavinia to him, taking her by the waist, pressing her back against his chest. He was tempted to continue giving kisses on her neck, but she stopped herself and rested her head on the blonde's shoulder, paying attention to the girls. Lavinia just smiled and wrapped her arms in her boyfriend's own, snuggling closer to him. Let's get this over with, said Riaz, giving another tired sigh and then looking at Issei. On the other hand, I see that you got a good impression of Scathach, the Retid said, smiling amused. When Issei heard her, he got nervous. I don't know what happened to me, Issei said sadly. It's rare to see Issei-sama act like that with a woman, Ravel said, so the girls agreed. Yufufufu, it's true, seeing Issei like this is strange, but he's so cute. It's been a long time since I've seen him like that. The last time I think it was when I made a pass at him. Yufufufu, Lavinia said, laughing, causing Issei to hide his face in her neck. Magician, which he took advantage of to get revenge on her by giving her kisses, so the blonde had to close her mouth so that no sigh, gasp or moan escaped her, making Issei smile. Actually? Akeno asked, a little surprised like the others. Well, it's normal that doesn't usually happen after all. Issei is used to dealing with us, in addition to all that confidence that grew in him by having us by his side. That makes it difficult to see Issei in this way, Riaz explained, being the voice of reason, making the girls nod in understanding. Most missed the small smile that appeared on Gabriel's face. Well, but you, Gasper, and I will also retire, Kiba said, capturing everyone's attention. Us too, Murayama said, making Kadis nod. Do you want us to accompany you? Kiba asked the two girls. That would be good, Kiba-kun, Kadis responded. Well, let's go to the basement to use the teleportation magic circle, Riaz said, to which everyone nodded to start following her. Seeing this, Lavinia pouted for having to get up from her beloved Ikun's lap, however she still did it, but Issei did not let her go and got up behind her, and they began to follow the others, still hugging each other, their bodies wanting to take off from each other. Lavinia smiled at the gesture and rested her head on Issei's shoulder, making him smile. A few minutes passed. And everyone arrived at the basement, so the four of them positioned themselves on the "see you tomorrow, but you," Kiba said, saying goodbye to his wife when the magic circle began to activate. Daisuke, behave as I-senpai teaches you, okay, Kaneko said, looking at her friend. Yes, Kaneko-chan, Gasper, she nodded. See you tomorrow, both Murayama and Kadis said in unison. Goodbye, sensei, Kadis greeted Lavinia, who smiled at him. Tace-chan, the blonde returned the greeting to her student, so that then the four disappeared, then all the attention returned to Issei and Lavinia. And what are you going to do, Lavinia? Riaz asked, looking at the blonde. Well, then, said Lavinia when she noticed how Issei attached her even more to him, hugging her tighter, starting to spread kisses on her neck. Upon noticing this, she smiled lovingly and turned her neck to give the brunette a soft kiss on the lips. Do you want that I stay with you, Ikun? She asked sweetly, to which Issei only nodded, making the blonde smile, who gave the brunette another kiss. When they separated, she saw Riaz again. There you have your answer, the magician said to the Retid, who sighed. In that case, since it is your first night here, you have to sleep alone with Ice, said Riaz, to which Lavinia nodded pleased. That seems perfect to me, the smiling blonde responded. Well, we have to help Okasama with the food, said the red-haired demon, and then looked at Office, who was with the church trio all this time, next to Asia to be more specific. Any preference, Office? The blue-eyed girl asked, so the dragon of infinity looked at her. Whatever is fine, the dragon goddess responded without giving it much importance, to which Riaz nodded, and then everyone went to the upper floors, going back to doing their things until dinner is ready. When she did, everyone had a pleasant dinner, and then they went to their respective rooms to rest, obviously Issei without forgetting to send a clone with each of the girls. Issei's room. Issei was in his room undressing to go to bed when he was finally in his boxers and ready to do so. He felt Lavinia hug him from behind, however she noticed something when his breast stuck to his back, and it was that the blonde was naked. Kun and I will finally sleep together for the first time, Lavinia said in the brunette's ear while she was unmaking the bed. Tell me, aren't you excited? Lavinia asked, blowing into the brunette's ear, who turned around and looked at the blonde intensely. What man wouldn't be interested in such a woman like you? The brunette asked rhetorically and then grabbed the magician by the thighs and lifted her up. "Aye" was the cry of surprise that Lavinia gave when she was suddenly lifted up, however she was quickly silenced by a passionate kiss from the brunette, which the magician reciprocated with pleasure, licking Issei's lips, and she asked for permission to explore his mouth. The honey-eyed man only opened his mouth allowing the entry of his girlfriend's tongue. Lavinia put her tongue into Issei's mouth, tasting and exploring it. Both tongues began to fight for dominance, exchanging saliva with each other with intensity, while the kiss continued. Issei sat on the bed and lay down, and then covered them both with the sheets, wrapping his arms around the blonde's waist. He attached her more to him, deepening the kiss, while the blonde hugged his shoulders, pressing her breasts closer to him. His chest, they both separated to take a breath, Lavinia being the first to recover. She began to spread kisses on Issei's neck, starting to go down. She spread kisses on his chest, then Lavinia stood up a little and looked at Issei in the eyes, and then planted another one on him. Issei turned, remaining on top of the blonde, separating from the kiss just as she did. He began to distribute kisses along the magician's neck, starting to go down until he reached her breasts, where Issei stopped to admire them for a moment and feel them with his hands. The brunette approached his head to the right breast and sucked it eagerly. Icon Lavinia moaned, arching her back a little, wrapping her legs around his waist and grabbing her head with her hands so that their bodies had much more contact and friction. Issei accepted this and used his right hand to stimulate her free breast. While he continued licking and sucking. "Do you like my breasts?" The blonde asked between moans, so Issei responded by biting and squeezing her nipples, stretching them a little with his teeth and fingers respectively, causing the blonde magician to have some spasms. "So good, yes, I'll take that as a yes." Lavinia moaned loudly and a very lascivious and erotic way if you were to ask Issei. After playing with the right breast, Issei went on to suck the left one. After playing with the magician, the brunette separated from her breasts and gave her a passionate kiss again, which Lavinia reciprocated with pleasure. They continued to give each other affection for a while longer until they were satisfied, and now they are both sleeping peacefully in their arms and with their legs curled up, with Lavinia sleeping with her head resting on Issei's chest, both smiling, happy to be able to be together. S3 Chapter 11. The guilty of excommunication. The next morning, the sun's rays invaded the windows of the room where Issei and Lavinia were sleeping peacefully in each other's arms. The brunette began to move uncomfortably when he felt the light bothering him. Opening his eyes, he passed one of his hands through them to wake him up completely, and then he concentrated. At the extra weight he felt on his body, looking at Lavinia, he smiled happily when he saw her sleeping with a smile on her beautiful face. "You are so beautiful, my princess," Issei said affectionately. "You are perfect in my eyes," the brunette said again, beginning to caress her hair, causing the smile on Lavinia's face to widen. "You are the most beautiful human there is, perhaps the only one. The one that competes with you is Suzaku Haim," said the brunette. Suddenly, Issei's mind wandered to the beautiful heiress of Himejima, playing tricks on him, imagining certain scenarios with her and Lavinia, and even some with Akeno, causing a slight blush on his face. Unknowingly, Lavinia was awake all this time listening to the brunette's every word and was currently looking at Issei out of the corner of her eye, with an amused smile on her face. Unable to bear it, the beautiful blonde was noticed. Ufufufu Issei heard Lavinia's melodious laughter returning him to the real world. He looked at her, and Lavinia looked at him with mocking eyes. "I didn't know you had a fetish with the members of the Himejima clan," the blonde said mockingly, making Issei nervous. "I don't have that kind of fetishes," Issei said, pretending not to understand. "Ufufufu, and tell me, were you imagining perverted moments with Suzy-chan? Maybe I also participated in them?" The magician said, asked with amusement, causing the blush on Issei's face to deepen. "Not me," the brunette tries to deny and then gives a resigned sigh. "Ufufufu, you are so cute," Icon Lavinia said laughing, and then gave the brunette a kiss, which he gladly reciprocated, and they exchanged saliva with each other. A few moments later they separated due to lack of air. "You know, I can tell Suzaku so we can fulfill your fantasy," the blonde magician said hotly in the brunette's ear, making him blush. "She's starting to get tired of waiting for Tobi's baka," she said again, looking Issei in the eyes. "Don't bother me," Issei said, grumbling when a malicious smile appeared on his face, while two of his fingers were covered with a crimson aura and went dangerously down to Lavinia's most private area and then thrust those two fingers sharply down there, making the blonde open your eyes. "Ah," was the thunderous moan that came from the magician's lips when her intimacy began to drip incessantly. Issei smiled even more at that. "What did you do to me?" Lavinia gasped, trying to catch her breath as her intimacy spasmed from whatever her boyfriend had caused her. "Bukuku, you know that in my original timeline my abilities and power were based on my perversion. You shouldn't provoke me because you could have a very bad time," dear Issei said maliciously when he put his two fingers to his mouth, tasting his beloved's nectar. "Blonde, you are so delicious," Haim Issei said, pleased, looking at the blonde, who looked at him with hazy eyes and then claimed the brunette's lips with a burning passion. The Sekiryu responded by invading the magician's mouth impatiently, beginning an incessant fight for him. Dominance that ended in a tie when they both separated due to lack of air. The blonde quickly began to kiss and lick Issei's neck lovingly. The brunette sighed and hugged Lavinia tightly, clinging her closer to him. I think you shouldn't be so hard on Toby. He is simply someone who is not interested in love, said Issei, taking his friend's side. Upon hearing this, the blonde separated from his neck to look Issei in the eyes. She watched him for a few seconds with her eyes blue and then give a sigh. That's something that doesn't matter to me anymore, after all now I have you, Icon, Lavinia responded, saying the last thing with affection, kissing and licking her lover's neck again, leaving small marks. Upon hearing her, a smile appeared on her face. Of the brunette hugging the blonde tighter, his chest collided with hers, giving him a feeling of softness that Issei was becoming addicted to. Returning to the topic of Suzaku Haim, my meeting with her will happen sooner or later, said Issei, capturing the interest of Lavinia, who stopped what he was doing to give her full attention to her dragon. What do you mean? The magician asked with curiosity. I plan to rebuild relations between Akeno and the Himejima clan, and she will be one of the bridges to achieve this, Issei responded enigmatically. You have a plan, right? The blonde asked, looking at her beloved. I will have to do a cleanup, it doesn't matter if I have to fight with a few gods or an entire faction in the process, I will make it happen for Akeno, for Suzaku, and for the future of the Himejima clan, Issei responded seriously, determination shining in his eyes. Upon hearing it for some reason, Lavinia smiled fondly. I see that it is true what they say that dragons are beings that let themselves be carried away by their feelings and emotions. You would do anything for your loved ones and we, Kun, said the blonde looking at him with affection. Anything for you, my beautiful princess, Issei said, smiling at the magician. And that's why we love you, my dear, said Lavinia, giving the brunette a soft kiss that showed all her feelings. Little by little the kiss began to escalate in intensity, becoming more passionate and heated. Lavinia licked Issei's lips, asking for permission to enter her mouth, which the honey-eyed man granted by opening it so that the magician could put her tongue in, beginning to explore her lover's mouth. Issei left her control for a few moments, letting the blonde enjoy herself, then Issei began to move his own, so Lavinia she stopped to let the brunette explore her mouth, just as he left it. When she thought it was enough, the blonde moved her tongue again, and they both began a fight for dominance. They both sucked each other's tongue with such eagerness and passion. They thought their tongue would be torn out, but neither gave it importance, immersing themselves in the moment, they tasted each other's saliva with enthusiasm. However, it all ended when they both ran out of breath. The blonde, after separating from the kiss, laid her head back on his chest. Of the chestnut tree, staying for a few minutes in silence, enjoying each other's company. Hi, Issei, called the blonde. Tell me, honey, the magician responded to her beloved. What did you think of Albedo? Issei asked with interest about the black-haired demon. She is very powerful, she is a formidable rival, Lavinia responded, smiling as she remembered her fight with the succubus. Oh, it came out of the brunette's mouth, amused upon hearing his magician's words. It seems like you like me, Albedo, Issei said, amused, to which the magician shrugged her shoulders in her reclining position. Oh, Kun, you loved it, didn't you? Her curvy and sensual body captivated you. Both of them actually left you speechless, Lavinia responded in a suggestive tone, causing Issei to blush. Lavinia laughed at that. What's more, I can say that Scathach would be a more direct rival for the title of most beautiful human. You were right when you said that Suzaku competed with me, but I think Scathach does too. Well, seeing her, the three of us have similar measurements, she said, making Issei's blush intensify when the image of the three naked beauties invaded his mind. This made Issei's sanity slowly begin to lose. When he saw the state of his beloved, Lavinia smiled. She loved to provoke him. He found it very tender without warning. The blonde kissed him again. Just not to make him concentrate on something other than his imagination and calm him down, which worked when he noticed that moments later he began to kiss him back. A few seconds passed before they separated. We are perfect, aren't we? Lavinia asked flirtatiously, causing Issei to blush again. Yufufufu, so adorable, said the blonde, starting to spread kisses all over Issei's face. A few minutes passed for both to calm down and resume the conversation. What do you think of her abilities? Asked a brown man, already recovered from his previous situation. They are really great and impressive abilities. I never thought I would see a being with such abilities. I think it will be very useful and necessary for what is to come, the blonde responded a little seriously when mentioning it. Well, that's true, Issei said thoughtfully. I think she will be very helpful, although we all have to do our part, the brunette said again, to which the magician nodded in agreement. And tell me how powerful you think she is? Issei asked curiously. You would have to use your crimson armor to defeat her, Icon, Lavinia said seriously, surprising Issei a little. Oh really? The brunette asked, a smile plastered on his face. Lavinia nodded and snuggled closer into his chest. Wow, that's impressive. These days, not many make me use the crimson armor, much less the dragon Diabolos. It will be a powerful ally for when everything is over. Bucket, Issei said, pleased. Yes, yes, whatever you say, now kiss me hard icon Lavinia said smiling seductively and then impacted her lips with the brunette's, giving him a passionate kiss which Issei responded with the same intensity. Their tongues collided with each other fighting for the dominion. Meanwhile, Issei turned around, taking control and remaining on top of his beloved magician, continuing with the kiss until they ran out of breath and had to separate. Taking a little air, they both gave another kiss and turned around on the bed again. Lavinia remaining on top of her beloved dragon again, both enjoying their precious moment together. I love you darling Lavinia said happily with a loving smile on her face looking at the brunette. I love you too, my princess the brunette responded in the same way and then gave another soft kiss, which showed his purest feelings. Do you think we go down to breakfast? Issei asked when they separated from the kiss. Yes, the others must be waiting for us the blonde responded, to which, agreeing, they both got out of bed, got dressed and went down to have breakfast. Residence Hall. Currently, all the girls were sitting at the table having breakfast with Issei's parents, waiting for the aforementioned to come down with Lavinia to eat their breakfast, who did not take long to appear when everyone began to hear footsteps coming down the stairs and looked towards there seeing Issei and Lavinia coming down with the brunette hugging her around the waist, holding her to him with his head resting on one of the shoulders of the blonde who had a pleased smile on her face. Good morning girls, Odo-sama, Oka-sama said the blonde to her sisters and in-laws. Good morning the girls and the Haidu parents responded, smiling at him. Good morning, my queens, Issei said, separating from Lavinia, going to kiss each of her loved ones good morning, while the blonde went to sit in her chair. And what is it like sleeping with Issei Lavinia Naya? Kuroka asked playfully. How to say it? Lavinia asked herself, placing a finger on her chin tenderly. It was filling and intoxicating the blonde responded, a smile appearing on her face as she sat in her place. Yufufufu I think so said Akeno laughing amused. I hope your first stay here was satisfactory, Lavinia said Ria smiling as she looked at the blonde mage. Issei, having already greeted everyone, sat in her place right next to the mage wearing absolute demise, with office claiming her lap. She immediately, yes, I have been captivated by your hospitality Lavinia responded, smiling mischievously, making everyone laugh. Ice-chan has breakfast, we have to go meet Surziches-chan Serafal spoke with her usual tone. Oh that's right, today we have that meeting Issei said, nodding to the Mao's words. What is that Serafal-sama meeting about? Ravel asked with interest. You'll have to wait to find out, Ravel-chan, the black-haired girl with pigtails responded playfully, making the phoenix pout. Will I have to accompany you Serafal-sama? Kiara asked to which the Leviathan nodded. Ice-chan, after that you will also have to go to Ajuka's laboratory, he is intrigued by what happened to your pieces and wants to examine you said Serafal, to which the brunette nodded. Has Ajuka been informed of Ria's and I's situation? The honey-eyed man asked to which the Mao nodded well, then I will warn him in advance, Issei said seriously. Warn him that I-sama? Faye asked him curiously. That he would dismember his little and incompetent brother limb by limb, Ice responded coldly with a malicious glint in his eyes, causing everyone to have a shiver down their spines. Yufufufu, I want it to be the rating game against him and see him beg said Riaz maliciously, who until now was silent listening while eating, causing the others' shiver to increase. Children, there is no need to go to such extremes, Miki said fearfully with Goro nodding in agreement. Don't worry Oka-sama, Odo-sama the two responded, still smiling. I didn't know that the Mao Beelzebub had a brother said Zenobia, lost as always. He has it, his name is Diodora Astereth, his heir to his house, Akeno responded to the doubtful swordswoman. Well, they will have to find another one Issei said seriously. Why so much effort against that demon Ice-kun? Penemu asked, curious about the attitude her lover and sister took. He is a member of the Cows Brigade, Ria said in a dry tone. But said all the girls surprised. How is it possible? Ravel asked in shock. He is making deals with the old Mao faction Riaz answered seriously. Shalba Beelzebub specifically, Issei said in the same tone. But if that's the case, we have to report it as soon as possible, said Rainer, looking at the brunette. Don't worry, everything is under control Riaz responded to the fall. He was going to reply, but seeing the Redeed's expression he decided not to. That doesn't explain why you want to massacre him, I-senpai Kaneko said, drawing everyone's attention. Shirin is right Naya, what happened to that heir? Kuroka asked without understanding. He is guilty of several crimes Issei said seriously. What crimes? Tiamat asked would it be? He has a certain fetish said Riaz would be. What kind of fetish? Lavinia asked, looking at the Redeed. He likes pure women Issei responded women who are linked to the church, women of faith, nuns Issei said surprising the girls. But they all said surprised. He made them fall in love, he deceived them, he broke their faith and caused them to be excommunicated, and then joined them to his nobility, and break them to such a point that the puppets would have more life than them, Riaz explained, causing everyone to open their eyes in horror. But what a vile thing to be, such a monster, Irina said trembling as she put her hands to her mouth. Unfortunately it is the truth, the church had many losses because of that demon, and the worst of all is that we could not do anything, because we did not have concrete evidence to present to the mass, Gabriel said, sobbing while tears fell from his eyes. Sister Penemu said with concern when she saw the Seraphim's state. Issei's heart broke when he saw this, so he took Office out of his lap and sat her on his shoulders, while she listened attentively to the conversation, eating her sweets. Issei motioned for Gabriel to come closer, who complied, getting up from his place and going to where the brunette was sitting on his lap, beginning to be caressed with affection. Don't cry, Gabi, I swear that bastard will pay for everything he did, Issei said as she wiped the blonde's tears from her beautiful eyes. Thank you, my life, thank you for supporting me, Seraphine responded with a small smile appearing on her face. You don't have to do it, I will always be there for you, you are my entire life, Issei responded and then gave a soft kiss to Seraphim, which I gladly reciprocated. Well, I continue, said Riaz, drawing the attention of the others. There came a time when Diodora became obsessed with a nun, a girl who he could not fall in love with, deceive or break her faith, her devotion to those in need, and God was absolute. So he had to make a plan to be able to have her for himself. Riaz continued talking, looking at everyone who was paying attention. That nun had a sacred healing gear, so he had to inflict damage on himself and then take advantage of her pure heart to cure him, and without hesitation she did. Upon hearing what was said, she gasped in shock as she put her hands to her mouth and began to cry. It can't be, he said without believing it. That's right, that nun was you, said Riaz, looking with regret at her bishop and at the same time causing everyone to look at her with different emotions. No, 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 said the former nun in denial. Like this, said Irina and Zenobia on both sides of her with teary eyes hugging their friend. Like this, Issei thought helplessly, not being able to bear to see her cry, so when he was busy with Gabriel, who was curled up on his chest hugging him, well, he continued listening in the background, consolidating with the warmth and affection of the brown man, who created a clone who went to where the three friends of the church were, who upon seeing him hugged him tightly. Seeing this, Riaz waited a little until the three of them calmed down to continue. It took a few moments for the three of them to calm down, but they still continued clinging to Issei's clone. Upon seeing this, the Retid cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. All of this was seen by the priest who was in charge of that church, so he did not take long to inform the higher-ups, inevitably ending with the excommunication of Asia from the church, Riaz said regretfully, and then became serious again with her plan come true. The only thing Diodora had to do at that moment was approach Asia and console her, and then invite her to go with him. But she didn't count on something, said Riaz, leaving a few moments of tense silence. Diodora did not count on Cacabiel finding out about Asia's expulsion and will beat him to it. The one who broke the silence was Issei, this time making Rainer open her eyes. You mean? Asked the Fall, to which Issei nodded. Yes, despite having used her and killed her in the process, that led Asia to meet us, and they saved her from a fate worse than death, and I thank you for that, Issei responded to Rainer's question, who looked at Asia for a few moments. The blonde just smiled gratefully at the black-haired girl, to which she returned it. Despite everything, the two of them loved each other. Now you understand why I want the worst for that bastard, Issei said, looking at everyone at the table who nodded. After that talk they continued with breakfast in silence, each one in their own thoughts. When I finished, Issei, Kiara and Seraphil said goodbye to everyone. To go to the underworld, well, the girls along with the clone went to the academy. S3 Chapter 12. The God Slayer Sword and Astereth. Underworld, Lucifer Castle. At this moment in Mao Lucifer's office, Serziches was doing the paperwork. Next to him was Grafia, who was helping him. However, they were taken from what they were doing when they saw that a crack opened in the place of which Issei, Seraphil and Kiara came out. Good morning, Serziches-chan. Grafia-chan, the pigtailed Mao, greeted the two demons present. Good morning, Seraphil, Sama. Serziches and Grafia greeted in unison. Good morning, Serziches Sama. Grafia Sama, it is a pleasure to see you, Kiara said, respectfully greeting the Mao and his queen. I say the same, Kiara and Serziches said politely, while Grafia just nodded at the girl. Well, Serziches-chan, here I brought Issei for a meeting as you asked me, said the black-haired woman looking at the red-haired man. How have you been, Nai-sama? Grafia. Issei decided to finally speak, greeting his brothers-in-law. I've been good, Ice-kun, the Retid smiling at the brunette. Well, Ai-sama, a little busy with work, but nothing I can't handle, the silver-haired girl responded with a soft smile, which Issei returned, making Grafia's smile expand a little. Seraphil looked at Grafia because of the interaction in her eyes. Half closed, shining in an icy blue, and then looking at Issei in the same way, however neither of them gave it importance. Oh well, I hope you can finish, so we can relax a little, Issei spoke this time referring to both of them, her smile still on her face as she looked at Grafia. We hope so, the silver-haired girl responded in the same way. It's okay, Seraphil Sama, Kiara whispered to the Mao, noticing the sudden change of environment upon seeing Grafia and Issei's interaction. Yes, Kiara-chan, don't worry, Seraphil responded in the same way, calmer. Well, Nai-sama, why did you call me? Issei asked looking at the red-haired Mao. First of all, I would like to inform you that on this vacation, you will have to attend the exams for middle-class demon, Surziches said, causing Kiara to be surprised and Issei to open his eyes with slight shock. What did you say? Issei said, surprised, unable to believe it, which confused everyone. Why are you surprised, Ai-sama, with how powerful he is? It's normal that someone wants to promote you to a middle-class demon, said Grafia, looking at the brunette. But I thought those exams were in a few months, Issei said, a little more recovered. Middle-class exams are held twice a year, Ice-chan, Serafal said, surprising him even more. What was the only thing Issei could say? Why Ice-kun so surprised? Surziches asked, drawing the honey-eyed's attention. Wasn't it like that in your timeline? The Redeed asked again, looking at the brunette. No, the only exams that were done and that I actually attended along with Akeno and Kiba are the ones that will be done in a few months, Issei responded, making those present understand. That's strange, why is it? The red-haired Mao asked himself. That may be one of the changes that occurred due to our return in time. Drake answered the Mao's question, speaking so that everyone could hear them. And are there a lot of changes between this timeline and the one they come from? Serafal asked curiously. Several changes occurred, although most were due to our decision-making. Drake answered the Mao's question. That explains it, said the Crimson Mao thoughtfully. Well then, who should I go to these exams with? Issei asked with curiosity, already recovered from the shock. You are the only one who must attend. You must go to the Glacial Ebola's territories, which will be where they will be held this year, Surziches answered the chestnut tree's question. I see, Issei said solemnly. Don't worry, Ice-chan, I'm sure that Akeno-chan, Kiba-chan and the others will be able to try in the next ones, Serafal said, smiling softly. I know, I will attend those exams, Issei responded, smiling at him in the same way. I congratulate you on your nomination to rise in rank, Ice-kun, said Kiara, approaching the brunette and then giving him a kiss, which Issei gladly reciprocated. Thank you, Kiara-chan, said the brunette when they separated from the kiss. The orange-haired girl only denied and gave him another kiss before returning to Serafal's side. Well, now let's get to what's really important, said the red-haired Mao, drawing Issei's attention to him. Tell me, Ice-kun, what do you know about sacred swords? Surziches asked in a serious tone, confusing Issei with a sudden question. What is that question about? Issei asked without understanding. Ice-chan, please answer the question, Serafal said, putting a hand on his shoulders, confusing Issei more. The sacred swords are 5 swords created by God, and these are Excalibur, Caliburn, Durandal, Hautacliran, Ascalon. Issei responded, to which Surziches nodded. That is correct, however there is a 6th sacred sword, Surziches said seriously, confusing Issei. If in fact it is a sword that you are aware of, since it is related to Japan, Serafal said, causing Issei to raise an eyebrow. Is it related to Japan? Issei asked, now curious. That sword is Aim no Murakumo no Tsurugi, Ai-sama, Grafia said, confusing Issei even more. But that is a sword that belongs to the Shinto pantheon. What does that have to do with us? Issei asked without understanding. Just keep it in mind, Ice-chan, you will soon understand, Serafal said softly, to which Issei only nodded. Well, now that you know about demonic swords. Surziches asked again. Damn demon, if you want to tell us something, say it, said Drake with an exasperated tone. Calm down, Drake, Issei said, trying to calm his partner down. I'm calm, mate, I just don't understand why it's going around so much, Drake responded with a sigh. Why will they ask all these questions to Ai-sama? Kiara asked herself in her mind. There are 5 demonic swords. Dainsleif, Turfing, Belming, Nothing and Graham, and they are known to be missing, Issei answered his brother-in-law's question. Won't you tell them that the Siegfried guy has them? Drake asked curiously. I don't see it as necessary at this moment, the brunette responded, shrugging his shoulders. Yes, Lucifer, not believing himself less than his father, seeing how he created the sacred swords, created his own being demonic swords, Surziches explained, to which Issei nodded. Despite the conflicts they went through, there was something in which they understood each other, and that was their hatred towards dragons, Serafal said seriously. Despite everything, if there was something they shared and agreed on, Drake said in a venomous tone, and Issei could swear that if he could see Drake at that moment, he would see him with more sober eyes and dark ones that have never been seen. And that is why they created Ascalon and Graham, Dragon Slayer swords, the most powerful of all, said Issei, to which the demons nodded. However, contrary to what the world believes, Graham is not the most powerful demonic sword, Ai-sama, said Grafia, confusing the brunette. What do you mean? Asked the brunette, looking at the 3 demons. Despite his hatred of dragons, there was something that Lucifer hated more than anything. He hated it with all his might, Serafal said with a serious tone. I can imagine what or who it is, Issei said sarcastically. And it is as you imagine. Lucifer hated his father with all his being. He wanted him dead at all costs, so with the help of Izanagi they created a weapon capable of killing him. That weapon is Kusanagi no Tsurugi, a god slayer sword, Surziches said, leaving both Issei and Drake stunned. Nani was all that came out of Issei and Drake's mouths in unison, their eyes wide open in shock and disbelief. That sword was forged with the fire of Kagutsuchi, one of the sons of Izanagi, and gave the sword the ability to use its divine flames, flames capable of killing the gods. The sword also has the ability to change shape, as it Surziches explained to a shocked Issei, who only approached a chair that was in front of Surziches' desk and sat down and then put his hands to his face. What the buck is going on with this timeline? Issei asked, a little irritated and exasperated. Is Ai-sama okay? Kiara asked worriedly, approaching the brunette, putting a hand on his shoulder. Yes, just a little incredulous. I can't believe it, Issei responded, giving the Eligos a smile. I can understand it, I'm the same way, Kiara said, passing her hand from his shoulder to his hair, so Issei reacted and attracted the demon, sitting her on his lap, which Kiara appreciated, settling into the brunette's legs. This action produced that both Serafal and Grafia looked at the girl, but she didn't notice. From your reaction I see that it did not exist in your timeline, said Surziches, looking at the brunette a little amused despite the atmosphere it would be. No, it didn't, it doesn't make sense. In the first place, why would Izanagi help Lucifer create such a weapon? Issei asked as he caressed Kiara's hair, which made the girl snuggle deeper into the chestnut hair. We don't know for sure, the only thing we know is that some time after the sword was made, Amaterasu took control of the Pantheon, becoming the new leader, but what we assume is that Izanagi and Elohim did not have the best relationship, he answered. Serafal, making Issei sigh. That would be obvious, he helped his son create a weapon to kill him, Issei said, and then looked at Surziches. And why are you telling me all this? The brunette asked with interest. Because we want to give you the sword, we believe that with you it will be in the best hands, and you will be able to keep it safe, Surziches responded upon hearing the words of his brother-in-law. Issei simply hit his head against the desk, exalting his companions a little. Because I always have to carry everything, always me, Issei grumbled, however he was heard by the four demons. You are the best one to carry it and you know it, or would you prefer to have a simple and boring life? Drake said, asked amusingly. Touché was all the brunette answered. I'm sorry, Ice-kun was all Surziches could say with an uncomfortable smile, which was shared by the two older women. Upon hearing it, the brunette raised his head and looked at him. You're not right, I'm the best at carrying it, I'm the best at everything, Issei said, a smile appearing on his face as he looked at the three demons, who calmed down and smiled along with him, while Kiara only began to rub his hand. Where Issei hit the table sweetly. Ice-kun, you will have to learn to use the sword and its skills, as well as control those flames, Surziches said, seriously making Issei look at him. So in these 2 weeks before you have to go to the underworld, you will have to go to Takamagahara and start training with Amaterasu, the Redeed finished saying. Train with Amaterasu? Issei asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Ice-chan, she will not only help you in the use of the sword, she will also help you control her flames, Serafal answered the brunette's question. I have already made the preparations for you to have an audience, she will be waiting for you there, the black-haired girl finished, to which Issei nodded. Well, Ice-kun, now Grafia will accompany you to the vault and give you the sword, then you can go to your meeting with Ajuka, said Surziches, to which the brunette nodded again. Please follow me, Ai-sama, said the silver-haired girl, starting to head towards the door, to which Issei stood up next to Kiara. See you at home, Sarah-chan, said the brunette, standing in front of the Mayu, pulling her into a hug while he surrounded her waist, so the black-haired woman wrapped her arms around her neck. Yes, Ice-chan, we won't see there, the Mayu responded, and then they both gave each other a soft and sweet kiss. When they separated, Issei turned to Kiara. See you, Kiara, Issei said, pulling the demon into a hug. Goodbye, Ai-sama, take care, said the orange-haired woman, and then both gave each other a kiss full of feeling. The entire interaction was seen by Surziches and Grafia. The first was smiling, while the second had a wooden face, but you could see her frown slightly. Frowning, it took a few seconds for the two to separate, and then Issei turned to Grafia. Lead the way, Grafia, she said, to which the silver-haired girl nodded and left the room, Issei following behind her. Mansion hallway. Grafia was walking through the corridors heading towards the vault with Issei following behind him, who was looking at Grafia's back with various emotions and thoughts running through his being. His hands were shaking and a cold sweat ran through him. There came a moment when he couldn't stand it. Moran took Grafia by the waist, pulling her into a hug, burying his head in her hair. He smelled the silver-haired woman's scent. Ai-sama, Grafia said when she felt how the brunette hugged her from behind. Let me be a little selfish this time, Fia-chan, Issei whispered in a pleading tone. The silver-haired girl's face became a little distressed, yet she did not break away from the hug. Turning around, they both faced each other. The eyes of Issei collided with Grafia's red eyes. Is something wrong, Ai-sama? The silver-haired girl asked with a worried tone. I think I'm a little pressured with all this, Issei responded, to which Grafia began to caress Issei's cheek gently. Everything will be fine, Ai-sama, don't worry, the silver-haired girl said softly, and then wrapped her arms around the brunette's neck and immersed him in her chest to comfort him, so Issei reacted by strengthening her grip on his waist. The maid. Thank you, Fia, thank you for everything, Issei said gratefully, separating himself from her embrace to look into her eyes and give her a soft smile. You don't have to thank Ai-sama, it's not a big deal, Grafia responded with a warm tone. Yes, it is, Fia-chan, you always helped me and were there for me from the beginning that Rias reincarnated me as a demon. Maybe you did it because Surziches asked you to, but you were someone who supported me and helped me a lot, Issei said with a melancholic smile in your face. Oh really? Grafia asked with a small smile, to which Issei nodded. If that's the case, why don't you call me One-E-san? I've already told you to call me that when we're in these situations alone, said the silver-haired girl while she caressed his brown hair. You don't like me calling you Fia-chan? Issei asked, to which Grafia denied. It's not that, in fact you're the only one I allow to call me that way, the silver-haired woman responded while she became more attached to the brunette. What about Nai-sama? I ask, a little disconcerted that I am the only one who has such a privilege. At the brunette's words, Grafia smiled mockingly. I guess he feels too intimidated to call me by a pet name, Grafia replied amused. Ahaha, Issei laughed at the prospect. In that case I will continue calling you Fia-chan, said the brunette smiling. Call me One-E-san, Grafia said with a pout and then hugged the brunette again, burying him in his breasts and starting to caress his head with her hand. I'm sorry Grafia, but I love you too much to say One-E-san, Issei thought sadly, clinging to her as much as he could. He loved her, but she was his sister-in-law in his timeline and in this one, so he had to settle for these little moments. Partner, Drake called with concern. I'm fine Drake, don't worry, Issei said to his friend. You know that I will support you in whatever you decide, partner, said the dragon, to which Issei gave a mental nod. I know Drake, but we already talked about this is all I'm allowed to achieve with her, the brunette responded to the red dragon. I'm sorry Isama, Grafia thought, apologizing to Issei as if she were aware of his train of thought while she continued caressing his head affectionately. A few moments passed for both of them to separate and compose themselves. Well, I think we should go get that sword, Issei said, to which Grafia nodded, and they both continued on their way until they reached the vault. It was an immense door, the silver-haired woman opened it and then they both entered. Issei was surprised by all the valuable things that there were in that room. There were so many that if I named them, it would be all day to do it. Both demons entered the depths of the vault. Here is the sword, Issei-sama said Grafia, standing in front of a banner, and there Issei saw it was a sword that had a black handle with violet and gold details. Its blade was blue with linear details in silver, and by the last thing that surprised Issei was that its edge was jet black. The black so deep that it made you feel like it would consume you. You can grab it, Ice-sama said the silver-haired girl, moving to the side so the brunette approached the sword and analyzed it for a moment and then grabbed it by the handle. At the moment of doing so, Issei could feel the raw power that the weapon emitted and felt how the sword resonated with him, accepting him as someone worthy. Issei took the weapon out of the banner and he analyzed it now in his hands and looked at it for a few moments before nodding his head. Now Kusanagi belongs to you, Ai-sama. I hope you take care of her, said the silver-haired girl, to which the brunette nodded. If I will, don't worry, Issei responded and then put the weapon in his pocket. Dimension. Well, I'll leave now, Fia-chan. Say goodbye to Surziches, Sirach-chan and Kiara-chan, Issei said and then opened a crack. I will let you know. Goodbye, Ai-sama, Grafia greeted Issei as she watched him leave after having passed the crack it is on the hill, and Grafia began to return towards the entrance to return to the others. Underworld Ajuka Laboratory. We are in the laboratory where the Mayu Beelzebub was working on his experiments. Ajuka was currently doing one of his investigations when suddenly a crack opened in the place, drawing his attention. Issei came out, causing the green-haired boy to feel a little sorry. Then approach him. Good morning, Ajuka, Issei said, greeting the Mayu. I see that you came. Haidu, Issei said the Mayu standing in front of Issei, and then they both shook hands. Yes, Serafal told me that you wanted to see me, Issei responded to the brunette's words. Ajuka nodded. I must say hi to Issei, you are a rather interesting specimen, said Ajuka with a smile that gave Issei chills, who felt a little uncomfortable for being called a specimen. As I understand it, an anomaly happened with your pawn pieces, said the green-haired, to which Issei nodded. If my pieces merged with my soul and gave me the power to destroy the Bale clan, Issei explained, to which Ajuka nodded. I see, that is quite strange, not to mention unique, Ajuka said thoughtfully. Would you like me to subject you to some tests? The green-haired man asked, looking at the brown-haired man. What kind of exams? Issei asked, looking at the Mayu with caution. A blood test and your power, Ajuka said, to which the brunette sighed more calmly. I guess it's okay, Issei responded, to which Ajuka smiled and entered a room and then came out with a syringe. Please sit down, said the green-haired boy, so Issei nodded and sat down in one of the many chairs that were in the room he was currently in. Then the Mayu injected the syringe, drawing blood. Well, make a sphere of power from the destruction, Ajuka asked, to which Issei obeyed. Doing so, the Mayu, upon seeing the ball of power of destruction, took it carefully. After he went with both things in his hands, entering a room, a few minutes passed for Ajuka to come out of there. That's it? Issei asked, surprised that he was so fast. Oh no, the results will take time, so you can come again after your ascension to a middle-class demon, Ajuka responded, smiling, to which the brunette nodded. Well then, let's move on to the important topic, Issei said, getting serious. Oh, and that would be? The Mao asked curiously. According to what they told me, they have informed you about the situation of Riaz and me, said Issei with the same tone. If they have informed me, why? Ejuka asked, his curiosity and interest increased. Well, because I come to warn you and notify you about something that concerns you directly, said Issei looking at the Mao, who was going to ask, but both were interrupted from their conversation when a magic circle from the Astaroth house was present in the place from which he emerged. A beautiful young woman with blonde hair with blue highlights, brown eyes and a dress the same color as her highlights, had a worried look on her face when she saw her. Issei couldn't help his serious face from falling, and a wide smile appeared on his face. Its place. Ejuka Oji-sen, I need to tell you something, said the blonde-haired woman a little upset. Leisha, I'm busy with someone important right now, Ejuka responded calmly. At that moment, the one now known as Leisha noticed the other person and was surprised to see her. You are the Sekiryu, the blonde-haired woman said with wide open eyes. I am very sorry, my name is Leisha Astaroth. It is a pleasure to meet you, the demon introduced herself with a nervous tone. You don't have to apologize, my name is Haidu Issei, the brunette introduced himself, giving the blonde-haired girl a kiss on her hand. How chivalrous, Leisha thought with a small smile on her face. After kissing her hand, Issei stared intensely into her brown eyes for a few moments. Is something wrong? The demon asked strangely. It's nothing, Issei said without taking his eyes off Leisha. Wow, I knew that demons are beings of sin, but I didn't know that they consummated one as beautiful and perfect as you, said the brunette smiling at the blonde-haired girl with blue locks, who was blush when listening to the chestnut's words. Beautiful and perfect like me, Leisha repeated with a red face. If I were with someone like you I would sin every day of my life, the honey-eyed man said again when Leisha's face turned even redder. Ahaha, I knew you were good with women, but I didn't expect this, Ejuka laughed, making her niece look away embarrassed, while Issei shrugged his shoulders. A few seconds passed for the Mao to speak again. Well, Issei, what did you want to tell me? Before Leisha arrives? Ejuka asked the brunette, who upon hearing his question, Issei became serious again. Her face changed from one moment to the next. Leisha thought a little surprised to see that change in the brunette. It's about your brother, Ejuka, Issei said seriously, drawing the attention of both Astaroth. What did Diodora do now? Ejuka asked, giving a resigned sigh. He is allied with the Chaos Brigade, Issei responded, making the two demons open their eyes. You're sure? Ejuka asked in a serious tone. In fact, man, that's the reason I came here, Leisha said, drawing the attention of both men. What do you mean? Ejuka asked, looking at her like Issei. Well, I was walking through the mansion when I heard him talking to a certain Shalba Beelzebub, the blonde-haired woman responded, causing Ejuka's expression to sour, while Issei's expression did not change, knowing it. In fact, Diodora works for him, said Issei, making Ejuka's attention return to them. Issei saw Leisha called to the brunette who paid attention to her. Ice-kun is fine, Leisha-chan said Issei smiling, causing a faint blush to appear on the blonde's face. Ice-kun, she said nervously, to which Issei nodded satisfied. I knew this about Diodora because I heard him talking, but how did you find out? The blonde asked with curiosity in her voice. Upon hearing the question, Issei smiled. After a few seconds, Leisha felt how they hugged her from behind, surrounding her waist. She began to feel a warm breath on her ear. That's a secret, said a voice in her blonde's ear, exalting her. It was the scream that came out of the demon's mouth when she felt contact with a new individual, who was a clone created by Issei. If you want to know, you will have to earn my trust, Leisha-chan, Issei's clone said again in the demon's ear, blowing a little into it. The blonde, realizing the situation she was in, and what the brunette's words could mean, he blushed violently, all before the amused looks of Ejuka and Issei. Ahaha, the two men could not stand it and laughed openly at the clone having disappeared moments before. Meanwhile, Leisha was dying of shame for what the brunette did to her. Ice-kun, you're evil, said the blonde with blue highlights, pouting. You're so cute, Issei said unconsciously, causing the blush on Leisha's face to increase. After a few seconds, Issei coughed to draw attention back to him, leaving the jokes aside. Ejuka Diodora is a traitor to the underworld, said the Sekiryu, returning to his serious tone. Okay, I'll take care of him, Ejuka said with a sigh. You won't, I just came to warn you, Issei said in a dead tone while his eyes turned into slits. This surprised Latya, who looked nervously as the atmosphere became tense. And because I shouldn't, Ejuka said in a serious tone, facing the brunette's gaze. I also said that I came to give you a notification, and that is that you should look for another heir, because I will tear that bastard limb from limb, said Issei in the same tone. Why would it be so brutal? Leisha gasped fearfully as she imagined the situation. Upon hearing it, Issei's eyes softened and he turned towards her to look at her with the warmest eyes he could at that moment in order to comfort her. Leisha-chan, Diodora has to pay for what she did, Issei responded to the blonde's question with a tone that managed to calm her down. And what makes you think I'll let you do that? Ejuka asked in a dangerous tone, making both young people turn towards him. I will do it even if I have to pass over you, Super Demon, Issei responded, facing the Mao, saying the last thing with mockery. Do you think you have enough to achieve it? The green-haired Mao asked defiantly, his green aura beginning to surround him. Do you think you have enough to stop me? Issei returned, beginning to surround himself with his blackish-purple aura. Please stop, it is not necessary to go to these extremes, Leisha asked in a pleading tone, standing between them both. The two men looked at her for a moment and then sighed and calmed down. Thank you, the blonde said with a sigh. First of all, you have to know why you would take such a radical measure, Ice-kun. She asked, trying to lighten the suffocating atmosphere that surrounded her. That bastard is to blame for what happened to Asia, Issei answered the young woman's question. Ria's former holy maiden bishop. Both Astereth asked in unison, to which Issei nodded. I see the Diodora was the demon that she cured, Ajuka said thoughtfully. Yes, it was all a plan concocted by him to have her. He is to blame for all the suffering that happened. Him and his damn perverse fetish, Issei said with rage. In fact, that is why he joined Shalba. He plans to kidnap Asia when we face each other in the raiding game tournament that will be held during the holidays. Well, the anti-Mao faction attacks us, Issei explained while looking at both. Ajuka, Asia is one of my beloved women. No one messes with the property of a dragon, and he lives to tell the tale. I will make him pay for what he did to him, no matter what you tell me. The brunette finished his monologue staring at Ajuka, as if he were daring him to challenge him. Before Issei's words, Ajuka only gave a sigh of resignation. I understand, it's okay, do what you have to do, said the Mao in a defeated tone. If it's any consolation, I was going to be killed by Shalba anyway, Issei said, putting a hand on the Mao's shoulder. I see, Ajuka responded without further ado. Wait a minute, there's something I don't understand, Leisha said, drawing the attention of the two, who looked at her. Why would Diodora be so obsessed with Ria's bishop? Asked the blonde, to which Issei went on to tell her the story of Asia and what her life was like. I see, it's a sad story, Astereth said with pity for the former nun. That damn Diodora always seemed like someone disgusting to me. I liked him, even though we were family, Leisha said with disgust when thinking about the current heir of her house. I agree, Issei said, smiling at the blonde, so a small blush appeared on his face. Well, I have nothing else to do here, I'll leave, the brunette said, and then opened a crack. Well, we'll see you soon, Issei, Ajuka said in farewell. Yes, now I will go to the academy to explain what is happening, said Issei, to which Ajuka nodded, and Ajuka said the brunette, drawing the green-haired man's attention. I don't think you have to look so hard to get another inheritance, he told the Mao to look lightly at the beat, which the green-haired man. I know, the Beelzebub responded with a smile. Then Issei approached Leisha and looked at her briefly, which she imitated. We look beautiful, said Issei, giving the blonde a quick kiss on the cheek, leaving her stunned, and then passing through the crack and leaving the place. When it was beating, he realized what had just happened when he blushed furiously and began to babble unintelligible words, all before Ajuka's amused gaze. You like me, right? Ajuka asked in a mocking tone, making the blonde's blush deepen. Shut up, OG Baka, she screamed, dying of embarrassment with smoke coming out of her head before running out of the place, forgetting that she could use magic circles. Ahahaha, Ajuka laughed. I see that Surziches was right, things become more interesting when he is around, Issei said the Mao before getting lost in the corridors of his laboratory. End of chapter. Well, here I bring you another chapter 1, hope you like it. First of all, I want to say something about the vote I did on the two Arturias in the previous chapter. I know that the majority asked me for the appearance of normal Arturia, but I decided to do it with the appearance of Arturia Alter, because this is good, it is for a little change, since I will use the Alter appearance for this story, and the normal appearance for the Dragon Master. It seems repetitive to me to use the same appearance for both fics, that's why I decided this. I know that many also ask me to use both, but the truth is I don't see the idea, I wouldn't know how to develop it, but I like that idea a lot, so the only thing I can offer you is this. It's up to you whether I add it or not. Amaterasu will appear soon, this will be her appearance. My question is, should I leave her like this or should I give her orange eyes? In addition to Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi will also appear. This will be your appearance. Last but not least, I need you to give me suggestions to give one or some other skills abilities to Kusanagi. I will read the comments. Without more, I say goodbye. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown in left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.